Chapter 881 Divine Light, Investigation, Divine List. The assassins and villains from the domain of sin didn't have to wait long. For upon arriving in the heavenly God Mountain territory, the 530,000 divine kings from the 5 great divine kingdoms, Wanmu Mountain Divine Nation, Chenjua Divine Kingdom, Snow Desert Divine Kingdom, Black Dragon Mountain Divine Kingdom, Lansong Divine Kingdom, were finally about to officially enter the Heavenly God Mountain. The 5 flying boats driven by the sovereigns leading the 5 divine kingdoms stopped just outside the divine light halo at the foot of the sky-supporting giant mountain, known as Heavenly God Mountain. Stepping into this divine light halo will officially take you into the first layer of the world at the very bottom of Heavenly God Mountain. Leading Sovereign Ziyang finally instructed everyone. The entire process of challenging the Heavenly God Mountain will last 1 year. After 1 year, the Heavenly God Mountain's 4th layer world will open the teleportation divine formation for leaving Heavenly God Mountain. By then, as long as you make it to the divine array, you will be able to come out of Heavenly God Mountain. I won't say much else. All the regulations for the challenge are explained within Heavenly God Mountain itself. Now, everyone, prepare to begin entering Heavenly God Mountain. I hope more of you in this group will survive, and even more so, I wish that all of you will find great fortune, stepping up from the God King realm to the Divine Venerable realm. Divine Kings are innumerable in every divine kingdom, but Divine Venerables directly form the backbone of a divine kingdom, becoming core figures. I hope all of you will rise to the next level. Go on, fight for your future. The voice of the leading sovereign Ziyang thundered out. Following this, the sovereigns of the various divine kingdoms also gave their own instructions to the divine kings of their nations. Sovereign Jialan and Sovereign Tian Mei, although they didn't say much to Yi Chan, one could tell from the way they looked at him that they too were concerned about his safety inside Heavenly God Mountain. Heavenly God Mountain is a profoundly mysterious divine mountain. Once home to several significant figures, everything about it is beyond belief. Even though both knew Yi Chan was extraordinarily powerful, they were unsure if he could successfully conquer Heavenly God Mountain. At this moment, Yi Chen's gaze was fixed on the upper part of the sky-supporting giant mountain in front of him. Standing at the foot of Heavenly God Mountain, he couldn't catch sight of the top of the mountain at all, and could only see a small part at the base of Heavenly God Mountain. However, in Yi Chen's heart, there surged a belief. Challenging Heavenly God Mountain is the second requirement from Sovereign Xuechen and the Northern Territory King. I must complete it. Also, back when I took the entrance examination for the 9 Great God Institutes, I received an opportunity for the God King's legacy from a being beyond the venerable level, Senior Feng Luo, who had once resided on Heavenly God Mountain. His legacy opportunity is within the 3rd layer world of Heavenly God Mountain, and I must find it. As Yi Chun spoke, his gaze directly turned inward to his Qi-Si. What no one knew was that within Yi Chen's Qi-Si, there floated a miniaturized blood-drinking divine blade, a miniaturized polar elemental god bead, and a tiny inheritance token. These 3 items were an opportunity Yi Chun had received during his assessments at the 9 Divine Institutes. As soon as he got these 3 things, Yi Chun felt a calling from Heavenly God Mountain. Unfortunately, at that time, Heavenly God Mountain was sealed, and he couldn't enter. But now, he was finally able to enter Heavenly God Mountain. Moreover, after arriving at the base of Heavenly God Mountain, he felt even more the call was coming from the 3rd layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. Once he enters the 3rd layer world of Heavenly God Mountain, he is very likely to gain the legacy left by Senior Feng Luo. Obtaining the opportunity left by Senior Feng Luo, even if it's merely a God King level legacy, being something left by a being beyond the venerable level, it will definitely greatly assist Yi Chen. The superb heaven-reaching divine art bloodlight blade technique, left by Senior Feng Luo, had already been of great help to Yi Chun. Yi Chun was also curious to see what the even more precious God King's legacy would hold. While Yi Chun was pondering, the instructions from the various sovereigns finally concluded. Whoosh! After the sovereigns waved their hands, all 530,000 divine kings flew towards the divine light halo at the foot of Heavenly God Mountain. Boom! 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 In a moment, All 530,000 people had entered the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. Once these divine kings had entered Heavenly God Mountain, the 15 leading sovereigns of the 5 great divine kingdoms directly sat cross-legged in the void below Heavenly God Mountain, quietly waiting. The time for the challenge of Heavenly God Mountain lasting a year was, for figures at the sovereign realm level, nothing at all. At their level, a moment of enlightenment could take thousands to tens of thousands of years. A year-long wait was merely a brief period for meditation and cultivation for them. Boom! 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 Countless streams of divine light surged, and the next moment, the 530,000 divine kings who had entered Heavenly God Mountain found themselves in a vast and empty great hall. Is this the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain? While everyone was curiously examining the great hall they were in with surprise, suddenly, the void within the entire hall erupted with a blinding black divine light, which instantly enshrouded everyone. This envelopment was inescapable, even for powerhouses like Yi Chun, Hua Xuelian, and Sima Liao, let alone the other divine kings. In an instant, everyone was engulfed by the black divine light. This caused all the divine kings to change their expressions. Heavenly God Mountain, mysterious and profound, indeed possessed power beyond their ability to resist. As 530,000 divine kings stood unsure of the purpose of this black divine light that had wrapped around them, a voice devoid of emotion suddenly rang out in the hall. Adventurers, welcome to Heavenly God Mountain. Now, the Heavenly God list will be drawn based on the strength of each one of you. When the Heavenly God list is completed, your tasks on the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain will also be issued to you individually. Boom! 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 When this voice fell, everyone felt the black divine light encircling their bodies begin to probe towards the sources of divine power throughout their entire bodies. Yi Chun also felt the black divine light on his body instantly stimulate his eternal god body skills, mysterious spirit thousand sword skills, and other various skills. This inexplicable black divine light even wanted to probe into his Qi. Yi Chun distinctly felt that the 3 mini-inheritance tokens left in his Qi by Sovereign Feng Luo, and even his blue extreme ice flame, seemed somewhat unable to block the probing of this black divine light. This made Yi Chen's expression change. If all of his skills were probed, wouldn't that mean all of his techniques would be exposed within the mysterious Heavenly God Mountain? Yi Chun didn't know much about Heavenly God Mountain, only that it is one of the most mysterious regions within the Wanmu Mountain Divine Nation, where even beings surpassing sovereigns had cultivated before. Now, seeing even the extreme heavenly object blue extreme ice flame being affected, Yi Chun realized that Heavenly God Mountain might be even more mysterious than rumored. However, to Yi Chen's surprise, just as the black divine light emitted by Heavenly God Mountain attempted to probe into Yi Chen's Qi, the most mysterious Stars Tower within his Qi directly blocked this power. Yi Chun also felt that the Stars Tower seemed to sense the invasion of the black divine light, as if it slightly revealed only a small portion of the powers like his Tai divine power and blue extreme ice flame in his body, causing the black divine light to immediately leave his body. Yi Chun did not know why the Stars Tower did this, but he knew it should be the Stars Tower protecting him from being probed by unknown powers. At the same time, Yi Chun further realized that no matter how mysterious Heavenly God Mountain was, in terms of skills, it definitely could not compare with the divine marvel of the Stars Tower within him. After all, the Stars Tower inside him was left by ZG Star Lord. ZG Star Lord, an absolute overlord in the cosmic sea. Heavenly God Mountain might be mysterious, but its power could not possibly reach the level of ZG Star Lord. As Yi Chun underwent changes, the divine kings who were probed by the black divine light also changed their expressions drastically. Even powerful figures like Hua Xuelian, Sima Liao, and Lin Shan had extremely ugly expressions on their faces. Clearly, all their secrets were exposed under the probing of the black divine light. Afterward, the black divine light left everyone's bodies and gathered into the void within the grand hall where everyone was located, eventually forming a giant divine list. This list was none other than the Heavenly God list. As everyone looked towards the Heavenly God list, they all let out incredibly shocked exclamations, because the entire Heavenly God list was divided into 7 major areas, and the names and rankings of each area were different from what most people expected. At the very top of the Heavenly God list was written, "The Heavenly God list shall rank you based on the combat power level sensed after probing all of your techniques. Even the external objects concealing your skills will be included in the probing results. The higher the ranking, the stronger the strength, and the corresponding Heavenly God mountain tasks will also be more difficult." The 7 major areas divided by the Heavenly God list are Superior Heavenly Divine Venerable Level Combat Power Area, Middle Heavenly Divine Venerable Level Combat Power Area, Lower Heavenly Divine Venerable Level Combat Power Area, Superior Earth Divine Venerable Level Combat Power Area, Middle Earth Divine Venerable Level Combat Power Area, Lower Earth Divine Venerable Level Combat Power Area, and God King Level Combat Power Area. The first area is the Superior Heavenly Divine Venerable Level Combat Power Area, where the 3 names that appeared were those of 3 powerful figures well known in the 4 great divine kingdoms for their combat power at the Superior Heavenly Divine Venerable Level, Hua Shuilian, Lin Shan, and Sima Liao. To everyone's astonishment, these 3 people's rankings were completely different from what was previously known. Originally, Hua Shuilian was ranked first among the 3, Lin Shan second, and Sima Liao third. Now, the rankings of the 3 have directly changed to Lin Shan first, Sima Liao second, and Hua Shuilian third. This clearly shows that Lin Shan and Sima Liao have both been hiding their strength. Their true power is far more formidable than what they have revealed. At this time, under the probing of the Black Divine Light, their true strengths were finally exposed. Brother Lin Shan, Brother Sima, I never expected the 2 of you to have stronger hidden power than me. It seems you both truly do not show your depth. At this moment, Hua Shuilian's gaze toward Lin Shan and Sima Liao clearly showed a trace of fear. The Heavenly God list is incredibly mysterious. It has revealed that Lin Shan and Sima Liao's combat power is stronger than his, which means that in a real battle, he could very likely die at the hands of Lin Shan and Sima Liao. Fortunately, the Heavenly God list has probed and exposed all techniques. Otherwise, he might die at their hands without being prepared. At this time, the expressions of both Sima Liao and Lin Shan were very ugly as well. They were certainly not willing to have their strengths exposed. Even if it showed that their power was the strongest among everyone, this would be inconvenient for their actions, as others would surely guard against them. Especially Sima Liao, his expression turning cold. His gaze surreptitiously shifted towards Yi Chun. This is bad. Now Yi Chun will be even more wary of me. This will make it even more troublesome to kill him. However, within his somber expression, Sima Liao finally let go completely. But it's also good if the Heavenly God list can fully probe the strength. I've never been able to see through Yi Chun, but now, at long last, I know his strength. His power is far inferior to mine. When I find a place no one is paying attention to, I will definitely be able to kill him. Sima Liao's gaze directly turned to the second major area of the Heavenly God list, Middle Heavenly Divine Venerable Level Combat Power Area. At this time, Yi Chen's name ranked at the top of this second major area. Even if he is remarkably powerful, it is still obviously not as strong as Sima Liao being listed second in the Superior Heavenly Divine Venerable Level Combat Power Area. Sima Liao probably couldn't imagine that the Black Divine Light of the Heavenly God list, which probed all his skills clearly, actually could not even enter Yi Chen's Qi, let alone probe and reveal Yi Chen's true strength. Chapter 882-. The slaughter begins. Yi Chen, you are truly formidable. To think that you rank only after Lin Shan, Sima Liao, and Hua Shuilian, 3 major figures with superior Heavenly Divine Venerable Level Combat Power, securing the first place in the mid-tier Heavenly Divine Venerable Combat Power level on the Heavenly God list. In the midst of countless exclamations about the Heavenly God list, even the ancient emperor of the Yen clan was profoundly shaken when he saw Yi Chen's name at the very top. Originally, Yi Chen's position at rank 7 on the God King list had already surprised him greatly. Now, the combat power that Yi Chun has displayed is far stronger than that of the 7th on the God King list, and even surpasses most of the top 10 demon-level geniuses among the other 4 divine kingdoms, which shocked the ancient emperor of the Yen clan to the core. The ancient emperor of the Yen clan could hardly imagine how, in just a few years, Yi Chun could have grown to this extent. At this moment, God King Mo Li and God King Feng Han standing beside the ancient emperor of the Yen clan were also extremely shocked in their hearts. They had been wondering why Yi Chun, ranked 7th on the God King list, could make so many people show such reverence in their eyes. Now, they finally understood the reason. It turns out that Yi Chun had such incredible hidden abilities, that he was even countless times more powerful than Yang Yen, who was first on the God King list. That Yang Yen is only capable of dealing with opponents at the lower heavenly divine venerable level of combat power, but Yi Chun can now suppress all those within the mid-tier heavenly divine venerable level of combat power, ranking first in that category. At this moment, the God Kings from Chenjua Divine Kingdom and the other 4 great divine kingdoms, as well as those demon-level genius God Kings, were each greatly shaken in their hearts. After Yi Chun defeated Shen Chong, they already had a feeling that Yi Chun was extraordinarily strong. But they had not anticipated that Yi Chun's strength would be second only to Lin Shan, Sima Liao, and Hua Shuilian, placing him 4th among the 530,000 God Kings of the 5 great divine kingdoms. This made many God Kings who were originally dissatisfied with Yi Chun no longer dare to show any disrespect to him. At this moment, the young girl Mu Qingxue, who was second on the God King list, was also somewhat shocked when she saw Yi Chun's name. A little over a year ago, Yi Chun had just entered the God King list, ranking 7th. I didn't expect that in just over a year, his strength has already far surpassed the 7th on the God King list. Although I've also been hiding my strength, I did not expect Yi Chun to be even more powerful than me. At this time, Mu Qingshua's name was also among the mid-tier heavenly divine venerable combat power level, which equally astonished the many God Kings who had heard of Mu Qingxue. But obviously, even though Mu Qingxue was hiding her true strength, she was still not as strong as Yi Chun. Great changes took place on the heavenly God list. The astonishment was not limited to Sima Liao, Lin Shan, Yi Chun, Mu Qingxue, and others. Virtually countless God Kings had their public rankings differ from their actual rankings. This time, on the heavenly God list, the combat power of innumerable people was laid bare without a doubt. After being stunned for dozens of breaths, everyone couldn't help but look towards the tasks issued by the heavenly God list and those concerning the individuals they were interested in. Yi Chun also looked towards his own heavenly God list task. It was written on the heavenly God list, Yi Chun, you must kill 10 blue light assassins and villains, and 3 purple light assassins and villains. There was also an annotation next to the heavenly God list. Those so-called purple light assassins and villains, blue light assassins and villains, refer to the assassins and villains who will be brought into the domain of sin, the first layer of the heavenly God Mountains world. Like the 530,000 God Kings of the 5 divine kingdoms in the heavenly God list, who are divided into 7 battle power zones, these assassins and villains are also classified into red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet 7 levels. The most powerful purple light assassin is on the same level as the top-ranked Lin Shan, Sima Liao, and Hua Shuilian on the heavenly God list, all belonging to the superior heavenly divine venerable combat power level. As for the blue light assassin, it is at the same level as the combat power that Yi Chun has currently shown on the heavenly God list, belonging to the mid-tier heavenly divine venerable combat power level. Now, the heavenly God list requires Yi Chun to kill 10 blue light assassins and villains and 3 purple light assassins and villains, which is no small feat. To know, according to the strength recorded for Yi Chun on the heavenly God list, he is only at the mid-tier heavenly divine venerable level, yet he is asked to kill those purple light assassins and villains at the superior heavenly divine venerable level of combat power, which clearly exceeds the strength tier on the heavenly God list. And it's not just Yi Chun. Everyone on the heavenly God list has been tasked with killing individuals who are above their combat power level. Those at the very top, Lin Shan, Sima Liao, Hua Shuilian, are not only required to kill 10 purple light assassins and villains at their same level, but they have also been assigned a special slaughtering task indicating that there are higher-leveled, lower immortal divine venerable tier golden light assassins and villains who will be entered into an exclusive area of the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. They must go to that exclusive area and kill at least 3 golden light assassins and villains, each to qualify for advancing to the second layer of Heavenly God Mountain. Everyone's tasks exceed their current combat power level, causing countless individuals to have a drastic change in their expressions. According to their current strength, it is absolutely impossible to complete these tasks. However, the Heavenly God list also specifies that based on the current strength of everyone on the list, it is indeed difficult to complete the tasks. Therefore, the adventure time for the entire first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain is set at half a year. Only after half a year will the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain be opened. In the span of half a year, everyone can cultivate in the safe zone of Heavenly God Mountain's first realm, enhancing their strength. Of course, one can also leave the safe zone to seek opportunities for strength enhancement. However, once you leave the safe zone in search of opportunities, although you may reap significant gains, you will also truly fall into danger. For the assassins and villains from the domain of sin will be ejected out of the safe zone, waiting at any moment to confront the divine kings venturing out in search of opportunities. For a time, all divine kings watching the Heavenly God list fell into contemplation. They pondered whether to stay within the safe zone to cultivate or to go out and seek opportunities to enhance their strength. The divine kings also knew that merely staying in the safe zone to cultivate definitely wouldn't do. Using the entire half year for cultivation might still not be enough to enhance their strength. To rapidly enhance strength, one could only leave the safe zone and seek opportunities outside. But once leaving the safe zone, one would certainly face immense danger and could even potentially lose their life. This was precisely the reason for the dilemma facing countless divine kings. While countless people were in a dilemma, the cold, emotionless voice that had been heard earlier in the Great Hall spoke again. The safe zone of Heavenly God Mountain's first realm is this very grand hall you are in. Once you leave this grand hall, you will enter the dangerous and opportunistic regions of Heavenly God Mountain. Whether to go or to stay, the decision is yours to make. After half a year, only those who have completed the task will be able to enter the second realm. For those who fail, the protection of the safe zone will directly vanish, and all the remaining martial artists will be confined within the first realm. At that time, countless ancient beasts will come to cleanse this world, and being confined within the first realm with no way out will almost certainly result in death. Now, the task of Heavenly God Mountain's first realm for the duration of half a year officially begins. After the voice fell, a light gate leading to the outside world directly appeared in the grand hall where the 530,000 martial artists were situated. Stepping through the light gate, one would enter into the real and challenging first great realm of Heavenly God Mountain, full of opportunities and threats. Looking at the light gate, countless people's eyes shimmered. Many people even spoke out, saying, "Let's gamble, we came to Heavenly God Mountain for the opportunities. We definitely can't just hide and cultivate in the safe zone. Merely normal cultivation will not allow us to break through within half a year and complete the task. I want to go and venture in the outside world. Although the assassins and villains are extremely terrifying and outnumber us by tens of times, Heavenly God Mountain's first realm is rumored to be vast beyond measure. All of us scattered could mean that we won't necessarily encounter a villain capable of taking my life. As long as I enhance my strength, I will definitely not fear those people." After these words, these people did not hesitate to rush towards the light gate, and in an instant, they completely disappeared from sight. At the same time as the Heavenly God list was successfully drawn and the task for the 530,000 martial artists was announced, in the countless domains of sin, those many assassins and villains eager to enter Heavenly God Mountain for battle also saw a list from the Heavenly God list appear in the vast stellar circles of the void, as well as the hit orders for villains of various levels. Subsequently, tens of millions of assassins and villains emitted various kinds of light from their bodies. These lights were the 7 colors of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, in addition to 50 special golden lights. Then, These tens of millions of assassins and villains vanished from the domains of sin in an instant. These people were all transported toward the first realm of Heavenly God Mountain. The moment they disappeared, the sound of their crazed laughter continued to echo. I am a blue light assassin and villain. As long as I assassinate 3 lower-level Heavenly Divine Venerables and seize the 3 Death God lights released by them after death on Heavenly God Mountain, I will obtain a divine pardon order after half a year. During these 6 months, I must kill these 3 targets at all costs. Even if I can't, we assassins and villains can also snatch the Death God lights from each other's hands. If someone kills my targets, I must take the Death God light from them. Haha, I am a purple light assassin. And this time around, those junior God Kings will not stand a chance against my onslaught. As countless assassins and villains were transported into the first realm of Heavenly God Mountain. In the Safe Zone's Grand Hall, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan, God King Emoli, and God King Fonghan all looked towards Yi Chun and asked him, Yi Chun, do you plan to cultivate in the safe zone first or go straight to venture into the greater first realm outside? Yi Chun chuckled and said, opportunities in the great first realm are limited. We cannot let others steal a march. Let's go. We'll head out and venture into it directly. It is said that assassins and villains of our same level outnumber us by dozens of times. This means there are at most only a few hundred superior, heavenly divine venerable level assassins and villains. The first realm outside is so vast that the chances of encountering these few hundred experts is extremely low. Yi Chun did not say more than necessary. In truth, Yi Chun wasn't afraid even if he were to encounter superior, heavenly divine venerable level assassins and villains. After all, his true strength was much more formidable than what the Heavenly God list had detected. Chapter 883 – Encounter. Hearing that Yi Chun planned to venture out on his own, God King Emoli and God King Fonghan both hurriedly bowed to Yi Chun and said, Yi Chun, then we will join you in venturing outside. When that time comes, we will be counting on Yi Chun to look after us. Yi Chun glanced at the ancient emperor of the Yen clan, then turned his gaze towards God King Emoli and God King Fonghan. Seeing Yi Chun's gaze directed at them, the hearts of God King Emoli and God King Fonghan thumped violently. They were afraid that Yi Chun would not agree to look after them. Without the protection of a strong figure like Yi Chun, relying solely on themselves would mean facing countless times more danger while adventuring in the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. While the two were anxiously waiting for Yi Chun's decision, they heard Yi Chun's voice, light with a smile. Since both of you friends and predecessor ancient emperor are fellow disciples, then let's act together. Wherever I can lend a hand, I will help. Hearing Yi Chun's promise, both God King Emoli and God King Fonghan were so overjoyed they almost shouted out loud. They knew that with Yi Chun's assistance, outside, they needn't fear anyone else except for those most powerful assassins and villains. At this moment, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan also fist saluted Yi Chun, saying, Yi Chun, this journey will trouble you greatly. The ancient emperor of the Yen clan knew that Yi Chun's willingness to watch over God King Emoli and God King Fonghan was all because of their acquaintance with him. Of course, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan would remember this kindness. Yi Chun smiled back at the ancient emperor of the Yen clan. Predecessor ancient emperor, no need for formalities. In Yi Chun's heart, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan had once been of great help to him. The ancient God Tower, left by the ancient emperor, had significantly increased his strength. It was due to the help of the ancient God Tower that he could resolve many later crises. Naturally, Yi Chun would not forget the ancient emperor's past care. To watch over God King Emoli and God King Fonghan a bit so that the ancient emperor of the Yen clan could have more people speak for him within the Heavenly Dragon sect in the future was just a small effort for Yi Chun. Of course, he would not refuse. Deciding to leave the safe zone, of course, the sooner the better. After a brief discussion, Yi Chun left the hall together with the ancient emperor of the Yen clan and the 2 God Kings, Emoli and Fonghan, and entered the light gate leading to the first layer world of the outside Heavenly God Mountain. After Yi Chun's departure, other people too left in 2s and 3s. Mu Qingxue had even left earlier than Yi Chun. The young girl, upon seeing that Yi Chen's combat power surpassed hers, seemed to harbor a strong intention to surpass Yi Chen. And Sima Liao, upon seeing Yi Chen's retreating figure, had a flicker in his eyes. Humph, within the vast first-layer world, there are many observers. It would not be wise to make a move on this Yi Chen. Fine, I have my own missions to accomplish. I'll spare him for a while, and after my affairs are dealt with, I'll find an opportunity to strike at him. I hope this Yi Chen has some dog's luck and holds on longer. It would be disappointing if he died at the hands of those assassins and villains before I get my chance. After sneering in his heart, Sima Liao also flew out of the safe area. In the end, in the hall of the safe area, there remained only a few thousand god kings who had not yet left. After Yi Chen, the ancient emperor of the Yan clan, God King Mo Li and God King Feng Han, the four of them, stepped through the light gate. In the next moment, as the divine light of the light gate flashed, the four found themselves transported to the top of a vast mountain. Is this the world of the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain where the adventure takes place? Those who left the safe area before us are not here. The ancient emperor of the Yan clan looked around and, besides the four of them, did not see anyone else. It seems that all those who left the safe area were sent to different regions due to the differing times of their departure. Nor are there any signs of those assassins and villains from the domain of sin. It seems, for now, the area is safe. God King Mo Li smiled as well. Indeed, the world on the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain is truly vast and immense. It seems that whether it is the God Kings venturing from our 5 great divine kingdoms, or those assassins and villains, all are quite scattered. Without discovering any adversaries, God King Feng Han also felt a sense of relief. Yi Chen then said with a smile, "Best if there are no threats. Let's quickly search around and see if there are any fortunate opportunities on this mountain." Immediately after, the four of them started to explore various parts of the vast mountain. Nothing troubled Yi Chen and his party for the time being. But as more than 500,000 god kings were sent to various regions, naturally, a portion of them encountered danger right away. A squad of 7 god kings from the Lansong Divine Kingdom had just left the safe zone when they immediately saw, not far from them, a valley where a cloaked elder exuding blue light sat cross-legged, meditating with eyes closed. It's a blue light assassin and villain. A blue light level assassin and villain of a mid-ranked heavenly divine venerable. Seeing the blue light on the cloaked elder matching exactly with the blue light assassin and villain recorded on the heavenly god list, the faces of the 7-member squad changed drastically. These 7 were at the bottom level of the heavenly divine list's 7 regions, capable at most of facing god king level opponents. Now, they had suddenly come across a mid-ranked heavenly divine venerable level assassin and villain. And how could they not be in a state of great panic? In a flurry of silent transmissions, the 7 did not dare to make the slightest noise, only quietly retreating to try and escape. However, just as the 7 had retreated a few hundred yards, the meditating blue light assassin and villain in cloaks suddenly opened his eyes. In an instant, his gaze turned towards the 7 trying to flee. The robed elder didn't need any movement as 7 rays of divine light shot out towards the 7-person squad. The 7 god kings from Lansong Divine Kingdom didn't even have a chance to scream before they were killed on the spot. Then 7 crimson rays of death god light rose from the bodies and flew towards the hand of the robed elder. After glancing at the corpses of the 7 god kings, the elder smirked coldly. "Merely 7 little ants, and you thought to escape from my grasp? Humph, unfortunately, killing them does not aid my mission, which is to kill those god kings with the combat power of mid-rank heavenly divine venerables in the 2nd region of the heavenly god list. Only by obtaining the blue death god light from them will it be useful to me." As he spoke, the robed elder casually waved his hand and discarded the 7 crimson rays of death god light onto the ground. After that, he closed his eyes and began to meditate. In a valley at this moment, dozens of god kings from Snow Desert Divine Kingdom were kneeling on the ground, shuddering with cold. In front of them stood a young man emanating purple divine light. This purple divine light indicated that he was one of the most powerful purple light assassins and villains, a superior heavenly divine venerable level assassin from the domain of Sin. The dozens of god kings from Snow Desert Divine Kingdom had never anticipated that upon entering the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain's vast world, they would encounter such a formidable opponent and be captured by his first move. "Spare us, Great One." At this moment, the dozens of god kings from Snow Desert Divine Kingdom, with ashen faces, kept begging for mercy from the purple-light young man. This purple-light young man glanced at the kneeling god kings of Snow Desert Divine Kingdom with a sneer. "Don't worry, I, Quan Luo, am in a good mood today. I won't kill indiscriminately. Just tell me what you know about the top-ranked masters on the Heavenly God list, and whoever satisfies me with their information, I will spare." Hearing the words of the purple-light young man, the dozens of god kings from Snow Desert Divine Kingdom understood that his mission was likely to assassinate the top fighters on the Heavenly God list. Facing the threat to their lives, the god kings from Snow Desert Divine Kingdom couldn't afford to hesitate. They competed to be the first to say to the purple-light young man, "Great One, among the people here this time, Lin Shan, Sima Liao, and Hua Shuilian are the strongest." "Right. There's also Yi Chun. He's extraordinarily powerful. He's the fourth great figure on the Heavenly God list." Upon hearing the names Lin Shan, Sima Liao, Hua Shuilian, and Yi Chun, the purple-light young man's eyes narrowed. "Humph. I know these four are masters, and I've seen the Heavenly God list. I want to know exactly what tricks they have and their deeds. Tell me quickly." The words of the purple-light young man frightened the dozens of god kings from Snow Desert Divine Kingdom, causing them to shudder all over. Fearing that their words would no longer satisfy the purple-light young man, leading to their doom, they all racked their brains even more frantically to share what they knew. "That Sima Liao is one of us from Snow Desert Divine Kingdom. It's rumored he owns 3 secret treasures as lifelines. And that Yi Chun, he even defeated Xian Chong, a powerful figure from our Divine Kingdom. While he was only at lower God King realm, his strength is unimaginably potent." The more he heard, the darker the young man's eyes became. He muttered, "Sima Liao, Lin Shan, Hua Shuilian, Yi Chun? It seems my chances are high if I take action against Hua Shuilian and Yi Chun." Of course, the encounter of the god kings from the great divine kingdoms with the assassin villains from the domain of Sin was not always to the disadvantage of the great divine kingdoms. At the edge of an ocean within the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain's grand world, Lin Shan, the number 1 ranked figure on the list of god kings of the 5 great divine kingdoms, who had been immersed in ascetic cultivation, was now looking deeply at the vast ocean ahead. Beneath his feet laid the bodies of hundreds of people, strewn all over. These bodies still bore traces of crimson, green, and even blue light. These deceased were various ranks of assassin villains from the domain of Sin, some even being blue light assassins and villains. Having killed hundreds, Lin Shan's expression remained unchanged. Looking towards the vast ocean ahead, he murmured, "So many assassins from the domain of Sin here indicates the ocean ahead might not be ordinary. I need to conduct a careful search. I must break through this first layer within half a year. My target is the cave dwelling left behind by an existence that transcends the sovereign on the 3rd layer of Heavenly God Mountain." With a solemn gaze, Lin Shan's figure vanished instantly on the edge of the ocean. Peace once again returned to the ocean edge. Only the bodies of the hundreds of assassins from the domain of Sin still lay on the sandy beach beside the sea. Fortune, of course, is not so easy to come by. Yi Chun and his companions had been searching throughout the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain's grand world for 3 days, without any findings. On the 4th day, as the group entered a valley, Yi Chun, who was leading the way, suddenly stopped. With a faint smile, Yi Chun muttered, "No chance encounters with fortune. Yet we've come across assassins from the domain of Sin. Indeed, there are 3 blue light assassins." As Yi Chun smiled lightly, 3 streaks of blue light burst forth from the valley ahead, and then 3 hideous heavenly divine venerables, shrouded in blue light, appeared before Yi Chun and his companions. Upon seeing Yi Chun, these 3 grotesque heavenly divine venerables showed greedy looks in their eyes. "Hey, it seems we've finally found a target. We three need 9 rays of blue death god light. This boy has been sensed to be from the second region of the heavenly god list. Let's kill him and claim our first ray of blue death god light from him. Chapter 884, The Shocked 3 Divine Kings. The moment mind and spirit took action, the 3 grotesquely ugly heavenly divine venerables flashed their figures, forming an encirclement, trapping Yi Chan and his group of 4 within. The ancient emperor of the Yen clan, God King Mo Li, and God King Feng Han were scared out of their wits. Just a moment ago, they had seen 3 figures appear. The next moment, those 3 figures surrounded them, and upon closer inspection, they realized that all 3 were at the mid-level heavenly divine venerable realm, with their bodies even radiating the level of divine light characteristic of assassins from the domain of sin. And they were blue light assassin and villains. How could this not terrify the 3 of them? With their strength, they could handle ordinary upper god kings at most, but only figures at the lower earth divine venerable level. Now, they were surrounded by 3 mid-level heavenly divine venerable assassins. For them, this was an absolutely indefensible situation. If not for the presence of the powerful Yi Chan beside them, the 3 of them might already have been scared to the point of turning pale. Even now, with Yi Chan at their side, their hearts were pounding fiercely. Although Yi Chen's combat power was ranked first in the second region of the heavenly god list, clearly not afraid of mid-level heavenly divine venerables, what they were faced with now were 3 mid-level heavenly divine venerables. If there was only one, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan and the 2 god kings truly believed Yi Chan could definitely handle it. But with the 3 of them together, they simply didn't know whether Yi Chan could withstand them or not. At this moment, the 3 grotesquely ugly heavenly divine venerables who had encircled Yi Chan and company didn't even glance at the ancient emperor of the Yen clan, God King Mo Li, or God King Feng Han. In their eyes, these 3 god kings were mere underlings, not worthy of their concern at all. All 3 of them looked towards Yi Chan, with one of them letting out a ghastly laugh aimed at Yi Chan, saying, "Little brat, encountering the 3 of us Taoists is your bad luck. Just obediently commit suicide and present the death god light that you possess. We may then leave the 4 of you with intact corpses. Dare to resist, and make the 3 of us Taoists waste our efforts. The 4 of you will be utterly annihilated." These 3 grotesquely ugly heavenly divine venerables, right from the start, didn't conceal their murderous intent. Yi Chen, fellow Yi Chan, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan, God King Mo Li, and God King Feng Han looked towards Yi Chan with immense worry, uncertain of how he would react next. All 3 of them were instantly filled with guilt, blaming their own weakness for not being able to help Yi Chan. If the 4 of them could take on a mid-level heavenly divine venerable, then Yi Chen's chances of winning would be much higher. Now, they were utterly powerless to contribute anything. Amidst their concern, they saw Yi Chan give a gentle smile and wave his hand at them. Following that, Yi Chan directly addressed the 3 grotesquely ugly heavenly divine venerables. "It's not my bad luck that you've encountered me. It's your own bad luck. My mission is to slay 10 blue light assassins and 3 purple light assassins. I was just worried about not finding killers of your 2 levels, and yet you've delivered yourselves to my doorstep. Honestly, I don't want to waste any effort either. So why don't you 3 just obediently commit suicide?" Hearing Yi Chen's words enraged the 3 blue light assassins. They had told Yi Chan to commit suicide, but now he was in turn telling them to do so. This was clearly a slap in their face, making a mockery of the 3 of them. As assassins who lived on the edge and were ruthless and ferocious, they were already brimming with killing force, so how could they possibly endure this situation? "You're quite arrogant, little brat. You ask the 3 of us Taoists to commit suicide. We'd like to see just what abilities you have to be so bold as to make such an outrageous statement." Boom! 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 The 3 blue light assassins were unwilling to waste more words with Yi Chan and instantly surged with alarming divine light, while a terrifying aura of slaughter also pervaded the entire area. In the next moment, they launched themselves toward Yi Chan, poised to kill. All 3 struck out with massive palms, seemingly intent on crushing Yi Chan and the ancient emperor of the Yen clan and the 4 of them to death right there on the spot. The combat power of a mid-level heavenly divine venerable was exceedingly fearsome, let alone when three of them joined forces. The moment the killing force struck, even before reaching the three ancient emperors of the Yen clan, the fearsome pressure made it impossible for the three of them to breathe. In an instant, the trio felt as if their physical bodies were going to disintegrate into ash. Their mouths agape, eyes bulging roundly, they tried to scream, but couldn't make even the slightest sound. Just then, they suddenly felt a powerful and warm force enveloping them. A massive circular barrier of light appeared outside their bodies, protecting them in its midst. It was Yi Chun who had taken action. Yi Chun. It's Yi Chun who's protected us. Inside the barrier of light, with the terrifying pressure now completely gone, the three ancient emperors of the Yen clan took deep, excited breaths as they looked to their side. What they saw was Yi Chun, facing the joint attack of the three middle, heavenly divine venerables with a faint smile, his hands clasped behind his back, showing no concern against the overwhelming assault. The next moment, the earth-shattering triple strikes of the three heavenly divine venerables landed directly on the light barrier outside the bodies of the three ancient emperors of the Yen clan, striking upon Yi Chun himself. Then, something shocking happened. Under the joint attack of the three heavenly divine venerables, not a single crack appeared on the light barrier surrounding the three ancient emperors of the Yen clan. It remained intact. The attacks of the three heavenly divine venerables couldn't even shake the barrier in the slightest. Overjoyed, the three ancient emperors quickly turned to look at Yi Chun, only to see that amidst the ferocious assault, he too remained completely still, unaffected by the attack of the three heavenly divine venerables. It's blocked. Yi Chun has blocked the attack of the three heavenly divine venerables. Even though they are middle heavenly divine venerables, blue light assassin and villains, they are no match for Yi Chun. The ancient emperor of the Yen clan, God King Emoli, and God King Feng Han were so overjoyed that they nearly jumped up inside the barrier. They had been worried before, but now after just one exchange, they knew that these three assassin villains were no match for Yi Chun. Their Yi Chun was indeed an overwhelmingly powerful individual. At this moment, the three exceedingly ugly heavenly divine venerables seemed as though they had seen a ghost. The attack they had just launched was intended to obliterate Yi Chun and his companions in one fell swoop, and they had exerted their full power. And yet it was blocked. They hadn't even seen how Yi Chun had made his move. This instant made the three realize that Yi Chun's strength was far superior to theirs. Incredible strength. He must not be an ordinary person from the second region of the heavenly god list. He likely ranks at the very top in the second region of the heavenly god list. Run! Quick, run! The three grotesque heavenly divine venerables share a horrified look and unanimously retreat frantically. Trying to flee? Don't you think it's too late now? Yi Chun, smiling faintly, sweeps his robe and in the next moment, he appears in the void heaven. Looking at the three grotesque heavenly divine venerables trying to scatter into the void heaven, Yi Chun still has one hand behind his back. He stretches out the other hand and casually taps 3 times towards the void. Thump, thump, thump. In an instant, 3 unrivaled beams of sword light cross the heavens, striking the fleeing trio with unbelievable speed and power. The 3 blue light assassin and villains from the domain of sin let out a scream and are pierced on the spot. Chapter 885-4 Fruits. Fallen. In an instant, 3 mid-level heavenly divine venerables of the blue light assassin and villain class directly fell in the middle of the battlefield. Until the 3 of them died, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan, God King Emoli, and God King Feng Han still hadn't recovered from their shock. It was only after a dozen or so breaths that God King Emoli came to his senses first, and he stammeringly said to Yi Chun, Yi Chun, Yi Chun, you are truly amazing. 3 mid-level heavenly divine venerables, and you managed to kill them all with a single move? At this moment, to God King Emoli, Yi Chun felt just like a true superior heavenly divine venerable. Perhaps only a personage of the superior heavenly divine venerable level could so easily exterminate mid-level heavenly divine venerables. Seeing the stunned expressions of God King Emoli and the others, Yi Chun smiled and said, putting down these 3 was nothing extraordinary. Their strength wasn't much stronger than Xianchong of the Snow Desert Divine Kingdom. What vision Yi Chen possessed! The moment those 3 blue light assassins appeared, he had already discerned the level of their combat power. Although they belonged to the blue light assassins and were ranked at the mid-level Heavenly Divine Venerable tier, they were only at the average level of that tier. Xianchong, who was roughly at the same level as these 3, was once beaten by Yi Chen without the slightest ability to fight back. These 3 people could naturally cause no waves in the presence of Yi Chen. Having endured over a year of arduous cultivation in the Earth Fiend Cultivation Room, and especially after reaching the pinnacle of the lower God King realm, Yi Chen's Eternal God Body and Tai Divine Power, among other abilities, had greatly increased in might. Not to mention a few ordinary mid-level Heavenly Divine Venerables. Even if extraordinary beings of the mid-level Heavenly Divine Venerable rank attacked him in unison, Yi Chen would not be afraid. Even if Yi Chen fully unleashed his might, releasing the Starry Origin power and his own created move Origin/First Form, which were his real trump cards, he could easily obliterate even superior Heavenly Divine Venerables. He waved his hand, stopping the shock of the ancient emperor of the Yen clan and the others. Yi Chen looked up and gazed into the distance. Let's go. The first layer of the world in Heavenly God Mountain is very vast. We must continue on our quest to complete the mission. What the 3 from the Yen clan didn't know was that after Yi Chen had slain those 3 exceptionally ugly blue light assassins and villains, he directly heard a voice. Yi Chen, your mission is to kill 10 blue light assassins and villains and 3 purple light assassins. You have now completed the killing of 3 blue light assassins and villains. Right after Yi Chen killed the 3 blue light assassins, a voice made him aware of it. This made Yi Chen even more intrigued by the mystery-filled Heavenly God Mountain. Yi Chen couldn't wait to complete the tasks of the first great world and dive into the subsequent layers to see what kind of mysterious force was controlling everything in Heavenly God Mountain. Once Yi Chen started focusing on the mission, the assassin and villains from the domain of sin who he encountered were out of luck. On the 5th day of the 4 entering Heavenly God Mountain, in a vast plain, dozens of assassin and villains from the domain of sin were frantically fleeing ahead, with the 3 from the Yen clan chasing them down, while Yi Chen watched the battle between the 2 sides from the void. This group of assassins and villains belonged to the lowest tier of the 7 levels of assassins and villains, the red light level assassins. Originally, when these dozens of people discovered Yi Chen and his companions, it was they who first surrounded and attacked Yi Chen and his 4 companions. However, as soon as Yi Chen revealed his combat power at the level of a mid-Heavenly Divine Venerable, he immediately scared the dozens of red light assassins into a state of utter terror. Faced with a mid-Heavenly Divine Venerable expert of considerable stature, these lowest-rank red light assassins with merely the combat power of God Kings did not dare to act rashly. They instantly took to their heels and fled. Although these red light assassins were no help to Yi Chen in completing his mission, they were extremely useful for the 3 ancient emperors of the Yen clan in completing theirs. Yi Chen then smiled at the 3 ancient emperors of the Yen clan and told them to exert themselves fully and slay these dozens of red light assassins from the domain of sin. Upon hearing Yi Chen's words, the 3 ancient emperors of the Yen clan were overjoyed. The 3 of them certainly understood that what Yi Chen meant was for them to focus on finishing their assassination task at ease. All dangers would be countered by Yi Chen's protection. As a result, the situation between the 2 parties changed in an instant. Initially, dozens of people from the domain of sin were surrounding and attacking the 3 ancient emperors of the Yen clan, but now it was these dozens of people fleeing for their lives while the 3 ancient emperors of the Yen clan were in pursuit to kill them. The roles of prey and hunters had completely reversed because of Yi Chen. Seeing the 3 ancient emperors of the Yen clan in pursuit, some of the dozens of red light assassins from the domain of sin gave a cold glance and were about to join forces to eliminate the 3 ancient emperors of the Yen clan. But at the moment they were going to join forces, they immediately heard Yi Chen's voice. Join forces? Do you wish to perish directly? Yi Chen's interjection directly frightened those dozens of red light assassins who had contemplated resistance. They dared not entertain the idea of joining forces and could only turn their heads and continue their desperate flight. However, they found that they were mysteriously restrained within a range of thousands of miles. able only to fly within this area and utterly unable to soar beyond the limit of thousands of miles. In an instant, these red light assassins knew that it was Yi Chun who was blocking them. Yi Chun didn't allow them to escape too far. This was to guard the three ancient emperors of the Yen clan from behind as they battled. Unable to escape the range of thousands of miles, and terrified to join forces in an attack. At this moment, these dozens of assassins from the domain of sin felt incredibly stifled and utterly indignant. As assassins and villains, they had never suffered such humiliation. Countless true god kings had perished at their hands, and if it were any ordinary day when they encountered the three ancient emperors of the Yen clan, they could eliminate the three within minutes under their combined attack. But now, with a person of mid-heavenly divine venerable combat power level present, they were completely restrained, like pitiful young creatures chased by ferocious beasts. Fortunately, they found that Yi Chun did not intervene in their one-on-one battle with the three ancient emperors of the Yen clan. For a while, these dozens of red light assassins were successively embroiled in a fierce fight with the three ancient emperors of the Yen clan. The three ancient emperors of the Yen clan did not disappoint Yi Chun. Although they were all individuals of God King level, after enduring a series of bloody battles which lasted for most of the day, they finally managed to slaughter all the dozens of red light assassins on the field. The three of them had completed more than half of their tasks. When the battle-hardened ancient emperors of the Yen clan, covered in bloodstains, returned to Yi Chun's side, all three of them clasped their fists to express their gratitude to Yi Chun. They knew that if Yi Chun made a move, he could easily help them kill these weakest red light assassins. However, Yi Chun did not take the initiative to strike. Instead, he restrained these assassins, allowing them to take action on their own. This gave the three ancient emperors of the Yen clan a true opportunity to showcase their strength. If they had simply stood by watching, they would have certainly felt like they were holding Yi Chun back. Now, it was different. They could also contribute their share of effort to their tasks. What surprised the three even more was that after completing their assassinations, Yi Chun shared his observations of the battle with them and even gave some guidance on their divine arts. The three ancient emperors of the Yen clan each possessed God King level combat power, while Yi Chun's strength was at the heavenly divine venerable level, a whole two major realms above theirs. Receiving guidance from a mighty expert like Yi Chun was, of course, immensely beneficial to them. After some deep contemplation, all three significantly enhanced their comprehension of battle. And so it went. Yi Chun, the ancient emperors of the Yen clan, God King Mo Li, and God King Feng Han began their adventurous days in the first layer of the vast world of Heavenly God Mountain. The foursome searched for various realms for opportunities, and upon encountering people from the domain of sin, they completed the task of killing. After roaming the first layer of the great world of Heavenly God Mountain for over a month, the four had also discovered some minor opportunities. While these minor opportunities were not particularly beneficial for Yi Chun, they significantly benefited the ancient emperors of the Yen clan, who all saw a considerable improvement in their combat power over this month. During their encounters with the assassins from the domain of sin, Yi Chun personally took down the targets related to his task. When encountering targets that were of a lower level and related to the tasks of the ancient emperors of the Yen clan, Yi Chun watched from the side, letting the three of them handle the actual combat. Yi Chun would only intervene if the three were in danger. Otherwise, he let them finish the kills on their own. The first layer of the great world of Heavenly God Mountain was immensely vast. In over a month's time, the realms explored by Yi Chun and his companions were not too extensive, and the number of assassins from the domain of sin they encountered was not large. In terms of the truly formidable purple light assassins, the four of them had not encountered even one. As for the blue light assassins, they had only come across four more. In the end, all four of these assassins were killed by Yi Chun. Adding to the three extraordinarily ugly heavenly divine venerables that he had previously slain, Yi Chun finally completed 7 out of the 10 blue light assassins' task, although he still hadn't come across an opportunity to kill 3 purple light assassins. Unlike Yi Chun, the lower-level assassins from the domain of sin were much more numerous compared to the blue light assassins. On the 38th day of their entry into the first layer of the great world of Heavenly God Mountain, After another reversal of pursuit that resulted in a mass assassination of the villains from the domain of sin, the ancient emperors of the Yen clan, God King Emoli and God King Fong Han, one after another, completed their tasks. Each of them had killed 10 red light assassins and 3 orange light assassins. Upon completion of their tasks, the 3 ancient emperors of the Yen clan were incredibly grateful to Yi Chun. Completing their tasks meant that they had the opportunity to advance into the second layer of the great world of Heavenly God Mountain. Within only a little over a month, they completed their half-year tasks and also experienced a soaring increase in strength. All 3 knew that all of this was the result of Yi Chun leading them on their journey. Without Yi Chun, it would have been impossible for them to enhance their strength so rapidly, and they would not have found those minor opportunities. Without Yi Chun, it would also have been impossible for them to kill the assassins from the domain of sin so smoothly and complete their tasks. They were, of course, extremely thankful to Yi Chun. And when the 3 of them had altogether completed their tasks, that cold voice echoed again throughout the first layer of the great world. Emoli, task completion in the first layer of the great world. Yen Nong, task completion in the first layer of the great world. Fong Han, task completion in the first layer of the great world. As the completion of the 3's tasks was announced throughout the first layer of the great world of Heavenly God Mountain, reaching the ears of the journeying God Kings, they were all shocked to their core. They never expected that the first ones to complete the tasks would be the relatively unknown ancient emperors of the Yen clan. You see, the others hadn't completed their tasks yet. Those weaker God Kings, without the care of an expert on Yi Chen's level, simply couldn't challenge and overcome assassins beyond their strength so swiftly. As for the stronger God Kings like Yi Chun, they too had not yet encountered a sufficient number of adversaries. This directly made the ancient emperors of the Yen clan the first group to complete their tasks. However, when they heard the names of the ancient emperors of the Yen clan, many came back to their senses. It's those 3 individuals accompanying Yi Chun. That Yen Nong, Emoli and Fong Han, they all follow Yi Chun. Their swift task completion must certainly be with Yi Chen's help. Many guessed the truth. But at this time, Yi Chun and his companions were not concerned with the thoughts of the God Kings journeying through various realms. For after Yen Nong, Emoli and Fong Han, the 3 God Kings, had completed their tasks, they surprisingly received clues leading to a great secret land all at the same time. In the end, following the clues, all 3 of them, along with Yi Chun, arrived beside a frigid pond. And in the pond, there stood a grand tree with 4 fruits hanging from its branches. Fruits identical in appearance. For fruits, matching exactly the number of people, Yi Chun and his 3 companions who had come to the pond. It was unclear whether this was a coincidence or a deliberate act by the mystical Heavenly God Mountain. Chapter 886 Fate Fruit and Death Fruit. These 4 fruits, each only the size of a fist. They were all born with a deep azure hue, and the surface of the fruits overflowed with divine light, clearly no ordinary objects at first glance. After completing their tasks, Yen Nong, Emoli, and Fong Han were guided to the great secret land. Yet they discovered such 4 fruits in this secret ground. Without thinking, one would know that the secret of this great secret land must lie within these 4 fruits. What kind of fruits are these 4? Yi Chun and the others exchanged looks, then walked toward the cold pool fruit tree, observing the 4 fruits as they went. In the past month or so, Yi Chun and his companions also searched many places in the first level of the Heavenly God Mountain's vast world, finding some small fortunes. But those were just small fortunes after all. Now, the 3 divine kings who had completed their tasks, all clues pointed to this great secret land. Clearly, the fortune hidden here was no small matter. It might even contain incredibly precious treasures. In their journey, Yi Chun and his companions were also extremely cautious. While they were full of anticipation for the opportunities in the great secret land, they were also careful to guard against any possible dangers. After all, this was the perilous Heavenly God Mountain. In the process of obtaining their fortunes, they had encountered several crises. It was precisely because of their caution that they had been safe. Even now, Yi Chun and his companions wouldn't let their guards down. As a result, when Yi-chan and the group reached the edge of the cold pool and came within several dozen yards of the big tree in the pool, they hadn't noticed anything abnormal. Even more so, with a sweep of Yi-chan's divine power, he easily plucked the 4 fruits from the great tree. In an instant, divine sense from Yi-chan, Yen Nong, Mo Li, and Fong Han surged towards the fruits. However, after all 4 examined them, they found that besides the flesh of the fruit being filled with divine light, there were no other dangers. It seems we've been overly cautious. Perhaps, these 4 fruits are a reward specially bestowed upon our team by the heavenly God Mountain for completing the task. Emoli said with a light smile to Yi-chan. Since there are exactly 4 fruits, why don't we each take one and study the mystery of these fruits? When Emoli said this, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan and Fong Han both nodded repeatedly. The 3 of them then said to Yi-chan, "Friend Yi-chan, thanks to you, we were able to complete the task, so please be the first to choose a fruit." Yi-chan was also interested in studying this mysterious fruit. The appearance of these 4 fruits in the clues of the Great Secret Land gave Yi-chan the feeling they were extraordinary. After nodding his head, Yi-chan randomly pointed at a fruit and said, "It looks like the 4 fruits are the same. We might as well pick one at random." With a sweep of Yi-chan's divine power, he brought one of the fruits to float in front of him in the void. Whiz, whiz, whiz. The remaining 3 fruits were quickly chosen by Mo Li, Yen Nong, and Fong Han. The 4 of them were now carefully examining the fruits floating in the void in front of them. Without understanding what exactly the fruit was, of course, they would not consume it as a normal fruit. All of them used divine sense to probe the fruit, and after not finding anything, they proceeded to use divine power to investigate it. As a result of this investigation, they all felt a rich divine power emanating from within the fruit. Even across the void, they could feel a rich, extreme divine power surging directly into their bodies. In an instant, all of them felt as if they were bathing in the aura of immortality. What a good item! The divine power inside this fruit is countless times purer than the divine power we practice. It must be a good thing. Feeling the divine power flowing out from the fruit and into their bodies, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan and the others expressed their surprise joyfully. Yi-chen's mind and spirit stirred. Indeed, it is a very peculiar divine power. It seems, it is somewhat similar to the starry origin power inside the 7 dazzling stars where I cultivate the Tai divine power. Could it be that these 4 fruits are marvels born from the cosmic sea? Yi-chen pondered in his heart. Regrettably, after entering the heavenly God Mountain, the divine sense of Xiaojiu and the little monkey inside the ice snow jade pendant was completely isolated due to the prohibition, preventing Yi-chan from communicating with Xiaojiu. Otherwise, Yi-chan could have asked Xiaojiu if it had seen such a fruit. As Yi-chan was pondering, and as the 3 ancient emperors of the Yen clan were carefully examining the fruits, sensing the peculiar divine power emanating from within, something shocking happened. Before Yi-chan and the 3 others could even react, a terrifyingly powerful divine light suddenly burst forth from the fruits in front of each of them, instantly sucking all 4 into the fruits. The fruits were only the size of a fist, yet they were able to suck in Yi-chan and the others, which seemed simply inconceivable. Clearly, there was a special small world space hidden within these fruits. It was rumored that the 4th layer of the heavenly God Mountain often concealed special spatial worlds. It was unexpected that these 4 fruits were 4 incredibly divine marvels among countless small worlds. Even Yi-chan had not previously discovered the small world hidden inside the fruit or noticed the anomalies within the fruit. But after Yi-chan and the 3 others were absorbed into the 4 fruits, the fruits remained motionless in the air, as if they had not absorbed the 4 at all. However, at the moment the 4 were absorbed by the fruits, the entire Great Secret Land where the Cold Pool fruit tree resided suddenly became completely sealed by itself. It was evident that after Yi-chan and the others were absorbed into the fruits, the entire Great Secret Land underwent a transformation. It was as if the 4 had entered into some mysterious mechanism within the secret ground. At this time, inside the fruits, the small world space where Yi-chan and the 3 others found themselves were all distinct, and at this moment, their expressions were also entirely different. Some were wildly overjoyed. Others were horror-stricken and pale, and some looked extremely ugly. The one who was wildly overjoyed was the ancient emperor of the Yen clan. Upon being sucked into the fruit, he discovered that he had arrived inside a cave dwelling with nothing else in it but a stone platform. On the stone platform there was a green bottle. Next to the bottle, there was also a jade tablet with gold luster divine script engraved on it. Seeing the divine script on the jade tablet, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan jumped with excitement, because the tablet indicated that the fruit he had entered was the heavenly god mountain's extremely precious fate fruit. And inside this green bottle in the small world of the fruit was a fate divine pill, unique to the heavenly god mountain. Once this fate divine pill is consumed, it could at the very least elevate one's realm by one layer, and for higher-ups even by several layers. How could this not make the ancient emperor of the Yen clan ecstatically overjoyed? Only now did the ancient emperor of the Yen clan truly understand why anyone who could break through the heavenly god mountain was guaranteed a rise in their realm. So it was because there were heaven-defying items like the fate divine pill within the heavenly god mountain. As for the miraculous effects of the fate divine pill, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan did not doubt them at all, because this was a divine pill hidden within the mysteriously profound heavenly god mountain, and the divine scripts within this fruit's small world could not possibly deceive him. When the ancient emperor of the Yen clan followed the refinement method written in the divine script, consumed the divine pill and started the refinement, he truly felt his middle god king realm's bottleneck began to loosen. He was actually beginning to charge towards a higher realm. At the moment of the realm breakthrough, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan was stirred in his mind and spirit. Fate fruit! So, the 4 fruits of this great secret land are fate fruits, containing fate divine pills. Now, Yi Chun and the 3 of us can all advance our realm by at least 1 layer. In his excitement, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan dared not be distracted any longer. He grasped this rare opportunity and began cultivating. The ancient emperor of the Yen clan had obtained the fate fruit. He even guessed that Mo Li, Feng Han, and Yi Chun, like himself, had also received fate fruits and the chance to surge through their realms. However, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan was completely wrong. At this time, Mo Li and Feng Han, both divine kings who had also entered the fruit's small world, were already so terrified that their faces had lost all color, and even the immensely powerful Yi Chun looked extremely troubled, because the small world of the fruit that Yi Chun, Mo Li, and Feng Han had entered into was nothing like the cave dwelling of the ancient emperor of the Yen clan, let alone having fate fruits in it. The small world space of the fruits they entered was a terrifying blood-colored world. Although these blood-colored terrifying worlds varied in size, they were extremely horrifying at a glance. In front of them stood a giant blood-colored stele, inscribed with the same message: Heaven and earth give birth to fortune. Fate is supreme, death fruit, only death without life. The fruits that Yi Chun, Mo Li, and Feng Han had entered were actually the complete opposite of the fate fruits. They were death fruits. Chapter 887 Murderous intent, demise, madness. The fate fruit could bring great fortune to those who enter, but the death fruit only brings endless peril. As Yi Chun, Mo Li, and Feng Han were looking at the blood-colored stele in front of them with drastically changed expressions. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly, hundreds of terrifying, sky-shocking demonic creatures appeared right in the blood-colored world each of them was in. And as soon as these demonic creatures appeared, they frenziedly lunged to attack the 3. The hundreds of sky-shocking demonic creatures attacking Mo Li and Feng Han were each as powerful as Mo Li and Feng Han's combat power level on the heavenly god list. They all belonged to the demonic creatures of the 7th region of the God King level on the heavenly god list. However, the hundreds of sky-shocking demonic creatures attacking Yi Chun were even more terrifying. These creatures, also matching the combat power level of Yi Chun on the heavenly god list, belonged to the God King level demonic creatures of the 2nd region. In the 2 separate worlds of the death fruit where Mo Li and Feng Han were located, when they saw an overwhelming number of demonic creatures, hundreds of times their own, coming to kill them, Mo Li and Fang Han's souls nearly flew out of their bodies in fright. The moment their divine sense made contact with these creatures, they discerned that the combat power of every single one of these creatures was definitely no weaker than their own when they first entered Heavenly God Mountain. Although their strength had increased over time, the increase wasn't significant. If they faced a few or even dozens of creatures, they could still handle them. But suddenly facing hundreds of attacking creatures, they truly didn't know if they could withstand them. However, whether they could withstand or not, they had to resist. Trapped in the world of the death fruit, the dire situation didn't give Mo Li and Fang Han any time to hesitate. When hundreds of creatures attacked them, the divine power in their bodies exploded, and they brought out all their means. Kill, 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 kill. With every move they made, a few sky-shocking demonic creatures were slain. When both of their divine powers were nearly exhausted, they had only killed off more than half of these creatures when suddenly, a boom resounded throughout the entire world of the death fruit. Boom, 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 boom. Then innumerable demonic creatures of the same level appeared anew, assaulting them once again. This time, the newly emerged demonic creatures were even more numerous than the ones Mo Li and Fang Han had killed before. Seeing the number of creatures swell, Mo Li and Fang Han, two divine kings, showed a look of utter despair in their eyes. If they could kill them all, they were willing to fight to the death to do so. But with their divine power nearly depleted and the number of creatures growing instead of diminishing, the last bit of hope faded away completely. The death fruit. Truly only a one-way path to death. I shouldn't have been curious to observe this death fruit. Amidst immense regret, Mo Li and Fang Han had just lunged to attack these creatures when they were overwhelmed by the sheer number of them. In an instant, after the demonic creatures retreated like a tide, Mo Li and Fang Han had completely vanished from the world. They were devoured by the creatures without even leaving ashes behind. Fallen. Out of Yi Chen's four-person exploration team that entered the death fruit, 2 had perished. Now, within the 3 death fruits, only Yi Chen was still alive. Inside the death fruit where Yi Chen was situated. Just like Mo Li and Fang Han, Yi Chen too faced hundreds of sky-shocking demonic creatures rushing to kill him. The world of the death fruit that Yi Chen was in was countless times larger than Mo Li's and Fang Han's, and the demonic creatures attacking him were also countless times more formidable. But unlike Mo Li and Fang Han's despair, although Yi Chen's complexion was incredibly grave, he had not fallen into despair. Without fighting with his all, Yi Chen simply wouldn't despair. Who says one must surely die in the death fruit? Yi Chen didn't believe it. He was going to control his own fate. When hundreds of the sky-shocking demonic creatures all lunged at Yi Chen, he didn't panic and fight in haste like Mo Li and Fang Han did. Yi Chen simply stood in the void, his vast divine power surging. The eternal God body's defensive power of the earth divine pattern went into operation. Boom! 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 In an instant, hundreds of the creatures charged in front of Yi Chen, furiously colliding with the defensive power of the eternal God body. But then, something astonishing happened. No matter how the hundreds of creatures kept striking at Yi Chen, they couldn't shake his defensive power in the slightest. Yi Chen stood proudly in the void, immovable, with his hair flying about. Yi Chen simply disregarded the assaulting creatures, his divine body resisting while he simultaneously recovered his divine power. Between defense and recovery, his divine power wasn't even depleted in the slightest. Yi Chen even raised his eyes to observe the void heaven within the world of the death fruit. In the end, Yi Chen even began to fly and observe at the same time. For a while, the world of the death fruit that Yi Chen was in presented a bizarre scene. Yi Chen flew ahead, with hundreds of sky-shocking demonic creatures constantly rushing at him, only to be sent flying upon touching the protective divine light around Yi Chen, and then they kept on charging at him. Wherever Yi Chen passed, it was as if he were flying with hundreds of sky-shocking demonic creatures. After half a cup of tea time spent in flight, Yi Chen had entirely traversed the world of the death fruit. The world of the death fruit is an entirely enclosed mini-world. Although it is said on the blood-colored steel that death fruit, there is death without life. This mini-world is evidently artificially created. If it's artificially created, there must definitely be a method to break the enclosure and leave. After a flash of brilliance in his eyes, Yichen first looked towards the hundreds of sky-shocking demonic creatures that kept pouncing at him relentlessly. The method of leaving must be either on these demonic creatures or on the mini-world itself. First, let's see if there's anything special about these sky-shocking demonic creatures. Boom! 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 With that thought in mind, Yichun suddenly reached out with a giant hand, and a sky-supporting giant palm appeared, grabbing a demonic creature hundreds of zhang tall right in front of him. Under the binding of Yichen's divine power, even if the creature was of the mid-rank heavenly divine venerable level, it couldn't resist at all. These demonic creatures were born according to the combat power listed on Yichen's heavenly god list, and with the blocking of the star's tower, the creatures possessed not even 1/10 of Yichen's own combat power. Yichen's true combat power is actually enough to sweep across superior heavenly divine venerables without fear. How could he care about a few hundred mid-rank heavenly divine venerable creatures? Yichen observed the sky-shocking demonic creature held by the giant hand for a long time but discerned nothing. Then, with a bang, he directly crushed the creature to death. In an instant, the sky-shocking demonic creature was killed on the spot. But he didn't stop there. Yichen wanted to find out the method to leave the world of the death fruit from these sky-shocking demonic creatures. Naturally, he had to see what would happen after slaying them. Thus, Yichen held back no longer. Whoosh! 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 Yichen waved his sleeve, and over 300 flying swords burst out from within him like a sudden torrential rain. Following that, the terrifying Tai divine power in Yichen's body poured directly into these flying swords, and he unleashed the mysterious spirit thousand sword skills. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of sky-shocking demonic creatures were all slain by Yichen on the spot. If ancient emperor of the Yen clan, Emoli and Feng Han had still been with Yichen, they would have been utterly astonished. Yichen's full-strength outburst was even more fearsome than when they had watched him kill 3 mid-rank heavenly divine venerables. Hundreds of mid-rank heavenly divine venerable creatures were annihilated by Yichen in an instant. If other divine kings who entered Heavenly God Mountain saw this move of Yichen, they would probably be even more shocked. The combat power displayed by this one move from Yichen was not at all the combat power shown in the second region rank 1 on the divine list. The combat power displayed by this move from Yichen wasn't even a bit weaker than the strongest in the first region of the divine list, Lin Shan, Sima Liao, and Hua Shuilian. After slaying hundreds of sky-shocking demonic creatures, Yichen's divine eye swept across, looking towards various parts of the world of the death fruit. Then Yichen's gaze suddenly narrowed, because Yichen discovered that even more sky-shocking demonic creatures had appeared within this scarlet world of death. The previous attacking creatures numbered over 300. This time, the quantity had increased to over 700. Slaying these sky-shocking demonic creatures resulted in even more appearing. Could it be these sky-shocking demonic creatures will endlessly increase? If so, this mini-world could indeed be called a world of death. If they truly increased endlessly, then even if Yichen continued to kill these creatures, eventually, it would be impossible to withstand the combined onslaught of the creatures once their numbers reached a climax. Let's try one more time. If after killing these sky-shocking demonic creatures, their numbers still increase and new ones emerge, then this path of slaying the demonic creatures is definitely not viable. At this thought, a hint of madness flickered in Yichen's eyes. To survive in a situation where death is certain, of course one must be mad. Boom! 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 This time, Yichen's divine power once again surged out, and over 300 flying swords slashed towards the 700-plus sky-shocking demonic creatures once again. After a few dozen breaths, the ground was covered with the corpses of these 700-plus sky-shocking demonic creatures. And at this moment, something that caused Yichen's pupils to shake once again occurred. Yichen's guess was correct. These sky-shocking demonic creatures were indeed unending. After the 700 plus were killed, over 1,000 creatures of the same rank appeared within this blood-colored world. These creatures truly could endlessly multiply. At this moment, the bloodthirsty killing intent surged within Yi Chun. If killing these sky-shocking demonic creatures won't work, then I'll try to break apart this mini-world. Boom! At that moment, Yi Chen's figure shot upwards towards void heaven, directly reaching the heights of polar heaven. He stood atop the extreme heights of void heaven, with eyes tightly closed, and his expression immediately turned to one of neither sorrow nor joy. Meanwhile, the Tai divine power within Yi Chen's body turned into a pale gold color, and this pale golden Tai divine power crazily surged towards the star's tower within his Qi Si. Yi Chun was going to invoke the marvelously divine starry origin power within the star's tower. Moreover, Yi Chun was preparing to unleash his mightiest move, the self-created divine art origin/first style, to shatter this mini-world in one fell swoop. Chapter 888, Shatter the Minor World. In an instant, within the first activated star in the star disk of the 5th level of the Divine Tower, endless starry origin power was drawn by the faint golden Tai divine power and surged wildly within the 5th level of the Divine Tower. At this moment, Yi Chun, standing at the immense height of the void heaven, suddenly formed a spell with his hands. The initiating move of his self-created divine art origin/first style was immediately activated. Yi Chen's palms thrust downward, assuming the pose of grasping a sword in the void. The next moment, the starry origin power driven by the Tai divine power was transmitted directly from the divine tower to Yi Chun. Boom! 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 In an instant, the protective divine light around Yi Chen's body, as if infused by a brilliant golden radiance, immediately turned into a shade of crimson gold. The aura and pressure from Yi Chen surged, becoming more than 10 times mightier. Most notably, countless starry origin powers directly converged within the hand Yi Chun held in the air, forming a golden divine sword. Then, holding this golden divine sword, Yi Chun fiercely slashed towards the heavens of this world of the death fruit. An astounding event occurred. In that instant, a horrifying aura beam, tens of thousands of zhang in length, emanated from the tip of the golden divine sword, formed by the starry origin powers in Yi Chen's hand. These aura beams were also condensed from the starry origin power. The starry origin power is even more powerful than the Tai divine power cultivated from the 5th chapter Tai chapter of his primordial star scripture. After these beams were slashed out, the entire void shattered wave after wave, and what's more terrifying is that, within these shattered voids, the power formed by the starry origin power did not dissipate at all, continuing to shoot towards the heavens like polar lightning. Finally, this unmatched golden aura beam penetrated infinite distances, striking a spot upon the void heaven fiercely. In an instant, a series of terrifying sounds boom, boom, boom erupted, making this entire world of the death fruit where Yi Chun was located tremble uncontrollably, as if it couldn't withstand the immense force of the starry origin power. This strike from Yi Chun made the entire realm of the death fruit tremble. Seeing this, Yi Chun was overjoyed inside. If even his most powerful starry origin power invoking self-created move couldn't shake this world of the death fruit at all, then he truly would be powerless. However, now, since the small world was trembling, it indicated that Yi Chun indeed had a possibility to shatter this small world. Thinking of this, Yi Chun did not hesitate any longer. Between gritted teeth, Yi Chun drew out all the starry origin power he could muster, eventually gathering another wave of sky-shocking divine light, slashing toward the heavens of this small world. Boom! 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 This sword slash was even more terrifying than the previous one. Merely the horrifying aura it emitted caused the 1,000 sky-shocking demonic creatures besieging Yi Chun to scatter in terror, fleeing in all directions. And within the sword, the ultimate killing power of wind, fire, rain, and thunder were all condensed, finally converging into a streak of lightning, forming the terrifying origin slash. Finally, this sword directly struck at the prohibition area of the heavens in this world of the death fruit. Thunderous rumbling. This time, the degree to which this small world violently trembled was even more intense than before, even causing the ground to roll out countless soils due to the terrifying vibrations. Some realms even directly cracked open with terrifying ravines tens of thousands of zhang long. But it was useless. This world of the death fruit still did not shatter. Regardless of how violently it shook, it still withstood the attack of Yi Chen's strongest origin/first style. Moreover, after Yi Chen withdrew his attack, the entire world of the death fruit returned to its original state, as if it possessed some unknown restorative function. It's not working. Still not working. My origin/first style can shake this world of the death fruit, but still cannot break it. Yi Chen's eyes flashed with a sharp glint as he looked up at the heavens, muttering to himself. Although this strike failed, there was no trace of frustration on Yi Chen's face at this moment. On the contrary, the light of anticipation in Yi Chen's eyes grew even stronger. Although it failed, the previous strike has already proven that I am not far from breaking this little world. If I can invoke even more starry origin power for attack, if I can create an even more powerful origin/second style, perhaps I could shatter this world and escape this deadly trap of the death fruit. When there's hope, go for it. Even if you can't reach the goal now, as long as you strive, there will always be a moment when you can reach the goal. The first layer of the Heavenly God Mountain's large world. I have half a year's time to venture. Over a month has passed, and there are a little over 4 months left. I must leave the world of the death fruit within these next 4 months. Otherwise, even if I manage to leave here, failing to complete the tasks of the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain's great world will result in being forever sealed within it. I have hopes of breaking the world of the death fruit, but I absolutely cannot break through the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain's great world, not even if I become a sovereign. Under such circumstances, I must strive to enhance the power of origin/ and increase the starry origin power I can harness within these 4 months. I need to leave here earlier to complete the tasks of the first layer of the great world. Thinking of this, Yi Chen could not afford to waste any time. The 4 months were incredibly short, especially for creating a stronger form of his self-developed technique, the second style of origin/. Yi Chen naturally would not waste a single moment. In an instant, Yi Chen directly sat cross-legged in the void, completely ignoring the sky-shocking giant beasts that kept lunging at him, immersing all his mind and spirit in creating a stronger technique. These mid-level, heavenly, divine, venerable level sky-shocking giant beasts could not affect Yi Chen's cultivation. The hands return to the heart unifies as one. Yi Chen, under constant attack by over 1,000 sky-shocking demonic creatures and deep within the perilous world of the death fruit, swiftly entered a state of exceedingly calm cultivation and comprehension. Days passed one by one. In a blink, Yi Chen had been in the world of the death fruit for over a month. Thus, counting altogether the 530,000 God Kings who entered the first layer of the Heavenly God Mountain's great world, 3 months had passed. In these 3 months, other than God King Mo Li and God King Feng Han who perished within the death fruit, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan was still in the midst of a breakthrough in his cultivation, and the fate of the other God Kings in various parts of the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain's great world differed, just like Yi Chen's team. A large number of them had already perished at the hands of the assassins in the domain of sin. Similarly, some had already completed the tasks listed on the Heavenly God list by killing enough assassins from the domain of sin, merely waiting for half a year to pass to step into the second layer of Heavenly God Mountain's great world. Naturally, many others were still amidst the process of seeking opportunities while completing their tasks. Among these, a large number had fallen into the deadly traps set by Heavenly God Mountain itself, just like God King Mo Li and God King Feng Han, losing their lives. Those who had significant breakthroughs were few and far between. After 3 months had passed, out of the 530,000 God Kings who entered the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain's great world, only slightly more than 360,000 remained. After 4 months, even fewer survived, with only over 100,000 God Kings left. Yi Chen was unaware of the chaotic changes outside, nor did he have the capacity to know. When it came time for the 5th month of everyone entering the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain's great world, Yi Chun had already been comprehending for over 3 months within the death fruit. On this day, Yi Chun, who was sitting cross-legged over the void heaven of the world of the death fruit, suddenly stood up from his seated position. He reached out with his immense hand into the void, and an endless oppressive force surged out like massive waves, roaring towards the entire realm of the world of the death fruit. The mid-level, heavenly divine, venerable, sky-shocking giant beasts that had been attacking Yi Chun for over 3 months, this time, were even more terrified than when Yi Chun had previously executed the first style of origin slash. Instantly, the sky-shocking giant beasts assaulting Yi Chun were terrified into disappearing without a trace by the dreadful oppressive power emanating from him. At this moment, however, Yi Chun did not care about these giant beasts. Standing up, his eyes once again looked towards the polar heaven above this small world. Over 3 months. Finally, I have summarized and created a new style of killing technique. If the first style of origin slash, was my use of countless cultivation techniques merged with the powers of wind, fire, rain, thunder, all infused into the extreme electric killing power, forming a single killing technique. Then this new style I've added a new force, the power of yin and yang. Let's try this move and see if it can break through this world of the death fruit. In an instant, Yi Chun's hand made a grasping motion, and a golden divine sword once again appeared in his palm. At the overlap of this golden divine sword, a shadow of a dark divine sword was also visible. This dark divine sword shadow clearly represents the dark side of yin, in yin and yang. Yi Chun's new killing technique shockingly displayed 2 completely different divine swords, representing yin and yang. Following this, the 2 great divine swords shuddered, unleashing boundless starry origin power, which was emanated from the brightly illuminated star within the star disk of the star's tower inside Yi Chun's body. The starry origin power emitted this time was 3 times more than the previous one. After over 3 months of intense cultivation, the starry origin power that Yi Chun could harness had experienced a qualitative improvement. Chapter 889 – The Voice from the Depths of Heavenly God Mountain. One sword shatters the mini-world. The world of the death fruit is now broken. This mini-world can no longer trap Yi Chun. Yi Chun's months of grueling cultivation have finally paid off. His relentless perseverance has finally paid off. He will no longer die within the world of the death fruit. That blood-colored steel said, "Death fruit, death without life." It seems that it's not truly death without life. At the moment of the shattering of the world of the death fruit, Yi Chun's gaze was directed towards the blood-colored steel he had seen earlier. At that glance, Yi Chun's eyes narrowed. Behind the 16-character divine script on the original blood-colored steel, heaven and earth create. Fortune is the apex. Death fruit, death without life. Another 16 characters had emerged. These 16 characters were startlingly: combat power undefeated, fighting spirit unextinguished, reversing fortune, transcending life and death. Right after Yi Chun murmured these 16 characters, the entire world of the death fruit collapsed completely, and along with this blood-colored steel, vanished without a trace. The next moment, Yi Chun found that, after leaving the world of the death fruit, he had not returned to the vicinity of the cold pool fruit tree where he entered before the death fruit, but appeared in the midst of a hall complex overflowing with divine light. In the middle of this hall complex was an immense square, and at this time Yi Chun was at the center of it. Ahead was the main hall of this hall complex, to the left, right, and behind lay the 3 regions of the sub-palaces. Breaking out of the world of the death fruit, I didn't return to the first layer of the Heavenly God Mountain's great world? Where is this place? Yi Chun's complexion changed dramatically as he surveyed the surrounding hall complex. If he were to be trapped in yet another mini-world for several months, then he truly wouldn't have the time to complete the tasks of the first layer of the Heavenly God Mountain's great world. While Yi Chun's face showed sudden change, within this hall complex radiating divine light, a beam of divine light flew straight towards him. With a speed Yi Chun simply could not evade, it shot directly into his mind. This beam of divine light was actually a transmission of divine sense. A divine sense transmission containing the information about this Hall complex. After reading through the divine sense transmission, Yi Chen's expression became one of extreme joy. The abandoned land. It is indeed the abandoned land. As Yi Chen shattered the world of the death fruit and entered another mysterious secret ground. Yi Chen did not know that deep within Heavenly God Mountain, in a place in the fourth layer of the Heavenly God Mountain's great world not meant for exploration, mystical sounds of surprise were emerging. These sounds of surprise were not from one individual alone. The first to speak was an extremely aged voice. It's been a long time since anyone trapped in death's mini-world could be reborn. Even more peculiar is the means this youngster used to break the mini-world. Another hoary voice also said, "Compassionate Divine Master, you've also noticed something off. That youngster's method seems to be origin power. A lower god-king realm, actually able to wield origin power?" The third aged voice revealed an incredulous tone. Could it be, this youngster, is the heir of which major figure from the cosmic sea? He definitely is the heir of some major figure, affirmed the first aged voice. Moreover, that youngster's origin power must have been left to him by that major figure. Otherwise, with his divine king realm, it's impossible for him to directly cultivate origin power. Hearing these words, the third aged voice took a deep breath and added, "For a lower divine king to exhibit such a level of origin power, that major figure's realm must be extremely high, most likely at the pinnacle of the cosmic emperor realm. And even more so, it might be in existence of this Star Lord realm, which surpasses the cosmic emperor." Star Lord realm? Impossible? Several voices that had not spoken before now resounded in turn. That's a true dominant figure in the cosmic sea. How could their legacy enter into this small divine kingdom? The second aged voice also spoke. Whether it's a great emperor or a star lord, these two levels of great figures are definitely not ones that we, as mere divine masters, can provoke. Forget it, we've been ordered by the ancestral god temple to guard Heavenly God Mountain, and must not interfere with any matters of trial within Heavenly God Mountain. Regardless of which level that youngster is an heir to, we should not disturb him. The remaining voices chimed in. Indeed, we must not disturb him. Had he not shattered death's mini-world, it wouldn't have even drawn our attention. Now that he has entered the abandoned land, that in itself is a reward for shattering death's mini-world, let's see how much fortune he can gain from it. Let's watch. After this exchange, silence returned to this mysterious secret ground. Yi Chen had no idea that Heavenly God Mountain was hiding a group of special characters. Even more unbeknownst to him, these special characters had mentioned a realm he had never heard of, the Cosmic Emperor realm, and they speculated that he was the heir of a Star Lord figure, paying even greater attention to his adventures in the Lost Land at this moment. Now, all of Yi Chen's energy was focused on the group of palaces radiating with divine light before him. According to the divine sense message that had entered his mind earlier, this palace complex was an abandoned cultivation site of a being who surpassed even the sovereigns. An existence that surpasses the sovereigns. Even an abandoned site was bound to have wondrous things left behind in these palaces. After all, even the items deemed trivial by an existence that surpassed the sovereigns were absolutely invaluable to a divine king like Yi Chen, let alone the even more powerful divine venerables and sovereigns. Only 3 days' time. According to the divine sense message, only those who have shattered the death's mini-world can enter such an abandoned place to search for opportunities. And they only have 3 days to do so, said Yi Chen. After 3 days, one will be directly transported back into the first layer of the grand world of Heavenly God Mountain. What kind of gains one can make in these palaces abandoned by an existence that surpasses the sovereigns will depend on these 3 days of achievement. Thinking this, how could Yi Chen hesitate any longer? Whoosh! With a flicker of his figure, he flew straight towards the palace at the very forefront of the palace complex. This was the main hall of the palace complex. The main hall was clearly the most precious place in the abandoned realm left behind by the existence that surpasses the sovereigns. However, Before Yi Chun even reached the entrance of the main hall, he felt a powerful repelling force coming at him. When Yi Chun was still over 50 yards from the entrance of the main hall, he was directly repelled by the powerful force and couldn't advance any further. It seems that even though this palace complex was an abandoned land, it still retained some prohibitions. Of course, Yi Chun didn't want to leave empty-handed. Boom! In an instant, Yi Chun stretched out his hand, and a slash akin to lightning struck towards the prohibition in front of him. Though it was a casual attack from Yi Chun, this lightning slash was powerful enough to kill a being of superior heavenly divine venerable rank on the outside. But when this slash attacked the prohibition in front, it was directly repelled by an even stronger repelling force, even blasting Yi Chun hundreds of yards backwards. Yi Chun's complexion changed dramatically. His figure flashed again, reappearing at the place he was blocked before, and without any hesitation, he used Origin/First Form as his attack. The Origin/First Form was so powerful that it could shake the world of the Death Fruit from before. However, when it attacked the prohibition of the main hall in front, it had no effect whatsoever, similarly repelled by the powerful force and finally reflecting back on Yi Chun himself. Yi Chun was blown away once again. Ultimately, even after Yi Chun used countless techniques, none of them had any effect on the prohibition of the main hall. Yi Chun remained barred over 50 yards outside the main hall's gate. It seems that with my power, I can't enter the main hall of this lost land, he reasoned. A disappointed look appeared on Yi Chun's face. However, Yi Chun was not someone who didn't understand the idea of choosing wisely. He had only 3 days to explore this abandoned land. Unable to enter the main hall, Yi Chun no longer wasted time and, with a flash of his figure, flew straight towards the sub-palace on the right side of the palace complex. Outside the sub-palace, there were also formidable prohibitions. But this time, when Yi Chun used the Origin/First Form, he successfully broke the sub-palace's prohibition and directly flew to the entrance. Yi Chun had thought that the sub-palace entrance might also be barred by prohibitions, but to his surprise, this time he was able to effortlessly push open the door of the sub-palace. Chapter 890 Meditation Cushion, Gong, Divine Incense. As Yi Chun pushed open the door to the sub-palace, the first sight that met his eyes was a vast, empty hall. Yi Chun observed that apart from a few objects in this grand hall, there were none other besides several meditation cushions scattered across the floor. These cushions varied in size, with the foremost one being slightly larger and the 25 others smaller in comparison. It seems this hall is a place dedicated to quiet cultivation. One large meditation cushion and 25 smaller ones. Could it be that the master of this abandoned land, the one known as the Supreme Existence, had 25 disciples who meditated here often? Yi Chun speculated that if the Supreme Existence had only cultivated alone, it would not be likely to have 25 additional smaller cushions placed here. Regardless of how many people might have lived in this abandoned land, what mattered most to Yi Chun now was what could be useful to him. Yi Chun walked directly toward the largest cushion, examining the others as he moved. These cushions were crafted from unknown materials, emitting an unparalleled fresh fragrance, along with a dense aura of divine power. Simply standing in this hall made Yi Chun feel incredibly comfortable. However, once Yi Chun sat cross-legged on the largest cushion, he was even more delighted to find torrents of incredibly potent divine power surging into his body. Had he not already cultivated to the peak level of the lower God-King realm, unable to absorb any more divine power before a breakthrough, he would have been able to accelerate his cultivation here by dozens of times compared to ordinary circumstances. Yi Chun even felt that cultivating on this large cushion might allow him to sense the bottleneck to break from the lower God-King to the middle God-King realm, and achieve a breakthrough in one stroke. It's a pity I can only stay in this abandoned land for 3 days, and during this time, I must hunt for treasures rather than focusing on cultivation. Yi Chun sighed softly. Yet, a glint of determination flashed across his eyes. If he couldn't cultivate here, he could take the cushion with him instead. Then, he could cultivate once he left this abandoned land. Thinking so, Yi Chun promptly stood up from the cushion and reached out with his hand to grab the larger cushion, attempting to store it in his ice snow jade pendant. But to Yi Chun's surprise, His effort to grab the cushion resulted in no movement, as though it was being anchored by an incomprehensible force. Yi Chen's grip wasn't the kind you would take lightly. His sheer strength could effortlessly lift a towering giant mountain, even with minimal effort. Yet, he found himself unable to move a single, tiny cushion, leaving him baffled. Yi Chen turned his palm over and applied greater force toward the cushion, but still, the large cushion seemed rooted to the spot. Finally, even after pouring all of his divine power into his grip, the cushion remained immovable. Frustration. This was the second time Yi Chen had felt the sting of failure since entering this abandoned land. First, he had been denied entry into the main hall, and now he couldn't even claim a meditation cushion. This deepened Yi Chen's reverence for the abandoned land belonging to the supreme existence, while also giving him greater clarity about his own combat power. Though I am already considered overwhelmingly strong by the standards of many heavenly divine venerables, I still pale in comparison to the supreme existence. Even the abandoned relics of this supreme existence defy my attempts to claim them. After his moment of reflection, Yi Chen turned his gaze toward the 25 smaller cushions. If he couldn't take the large cushion, perhaps he could retrieve the smaller ones. I wonder if these smaller cushions will be as difficult to claim. Yi Chen reached for a smaller cushion and immediately felt a tremendous resistance against his grip, challenging him to exert more force. Only after using 90% of his strength did the cushion finally rise. Yi Chen's face lit up with delight. Success. He could retrieve it. Once the cushion levitated from the ground, it became unexpectedly lightweight, and holding it felt as though it were as light as a feather. With the cushion in hand, Yi Chen sensed waves of divine power flowing into his body. While its effect couldn't compare to the largest cushion, its potency was still 10 times faster than Yi Chen's regular cultivation speed. A fine treasure nonetheless. Yi Chen smiled, and with a flash of divine light, he stored the small cushion in his ice snow jade pendant. Next, Yi Chen proceeded to collect the remaining 24 smaller cushions from the ground. By the end of his efforts, the hall that once housed the cushions now contained only the largest one. Gazing at the nearly barren hall, Yi Chen took a step toward a corner passage leading to the side hall. This corridor connected to 25 rooms. Using divine sense, Yi Chen scanned the area and confirmed there were indeed 25 rooms. It seemed likely these rooms once housed the disciples of the supreme existence. All the doors were tightly shut, and Yi Chen couldn't probe their interiors with divine sense, so he pushed the first door open. This room was meticulously clean, containing only a bed frame without any bedding. It appears that these disciples took all their valuable possessions with them when they left. Yi Chen shook his head. As for the bed frame, Yi Chen discovered that its effects were similar to the cushions he had just collected. Since he now had 25 cushions, he didn't find the bed frame particularly enticing. Exiting the first room, Yi Chen proceeded to investigate the rest. The second room empty. The third room also empty. It wasn't until Yi Chen reached the 13th room that his eyes finally gleamed with excitement. This room wasn't utterly barren. It contained several items. Aside from the bed and a cushion similar to those he'd collected earlier, Yi Chen noticed a copper gong hanging on the wall and a mysterious wooden hammer placed on the floor beside it. Neither the gong nor the hammer emitted a trace of divine light, resembling mundane items, but Yi Chen knew better. They were treasures. After all, relics left behind by the disciples of a supreme existence were unlikely to be ordinary. Without hesitation, Yi Chen picked up the copper gong along with the hammer. Both were staggeringly heavy, as if holding two giant mountains in his hands. Even more shocking, the instant Yi Chen grasped the hammer, his divine power began pouring into it like a raging river. If Yi Chen hadn't reacted swiftly by tossing the hammer away, he might have been completely drained of his divine power within 2 breaths. Despite his quick actions to halt the flow, the hammer had already absorbed 80% of his divine power in mere moments. As Yi Chen's expression changed drastically, the discarded hammer began radiating divine light and autonomously struck the copper gong. A deep, resonant dong reverberated through the room. Immediately, Yi Chun felt the entire room sealed by an invisible force, and even the remaining 20% of his divine power was rendered inert. This oppressive restriction reminded Yi Chun of the overwhelming aura of a sovereign realm entity. Yi Chun's mind and spirit trembled violently. Incredible! What kind of relics are this gong and hammer? Even with 80% of my divine power drained, I couldn't imagine a mere hammer creating a sovereign realm-like restriction. Could it be that the hammer and gong amplify the absorbed divine power to produce higher-level effects? For an entire half-cup of tea's time, Yi Chun remained imprisoned by this restrictive force. Once the effects finally dissipated, Yi Chun wasted no time sitting down to recover the divine power drained from him. When his energy was fully restored, Yi Chun cautiously examined the copper gong and hammer again. These relics are undoubtedly an extraordinary treasure. With these items at my disposal, I might even be able to immobilize an immortal divine venerable for a while. And this is merely my current capacity. If I had more divine power to pour into the hammer, its restrictive force and duration might grow even stronger. After further scrutiny, Yi Chun carefully stored the gong and hammer into his ice snow jade pendant. These relics, he decided, would require thorough study once he left the abandoned land. Judging from their latent potential, Yi Chun suspected they might become his ultimate trump card. Now was not the time for an in-depth exploration, though. The time spent recovering his strength had already been substantial. Yi Chun grabbed the small cushion in the room and left. Moving onward, Yi Chun investigated the remaining rooms. However, most of the remaining rooms yielded nothing, just like the earlier ones. It wasn't until the penultimate room that Yi Chun discovered an incense burner and a partially burned divine incense. Even as Yi Chun found the divine incense still lit, the room bore no other clues about the time that had passed since the abandoned land was deserted, nor how long the incense had burned. Upon smelling it, Yi Chun immediately felt the divine incense's effects on cultivation were even greater than those of the cushions. Yi Chun extinguished the divine incense and discovered that it could be reignited by channeling divine power. After testing this property briefly, he packed away both the incense burner and the divine incense. With this done, Yi Chun stepped into the final room. The last room, like many before it, was barren. Having searched all 25 rooms and thoroughly combed the sub-palace without uncovering anything further, Yi Chun left the right side of the sub-palace and emerged into the plaza. A flicker in the air marked Yi Chun's swift movement as he headed toward the side hall on the left. With the main hall inaccessible and the right side hall fully explored, Yi Chun wouldn't miss the opportunity to seek treasures in the left side hall, or the rear side hall for that matter. Chapter 891- Mysterious Herb Garden. After breaking through the protective barrier of the left side hall, Yi Chun stepped directly into the side hall. Inside this left side hall, there were rows upon rows of bookshelves. Judging by the appearance, this place seemed to be the secret pavilion of martial arts and divine skills belonging to the entity beyond the sovereign. The secret pavilion of martial arts and divine skills should logically be the most precious place in a strong cultivator's residence. However, at this moment, as Yi Chun entered the left side hall, his face was full of disappointment. The cultivation technique and divine art scriptures on the bookshelves had already been moved away, leaving all the shelves completely empty. Evidently, the entity beyond the sovereign had taken all the scriptures when abandoning this great hall. Yi Chun searched through the dozens of rooms within the left side hall but did not find a single discovery. Thoroughly, he had come back empty-handed. When he exited the left side hall and returned to the plaza, Yi Chun sighed. Abandoned land indeed. So little has been left behind. The main hall is inaccessible, the right side hall yielded some discoveries, yet this left side hall brought nothing at all. There's only one last side hall corresponding with the main hall in the rear left to search. Speaking, Yi Chun stepped forward toward the rear side hall behind the plaza. The precious 3-day treasure hunt time was Yi Chun's well-earned reward for escaping from the world of the death fruit alive. Although he had already discovered valuable meditation cushions, the mysterious bronze gong and wooden mallet treasure, and the uniquely special divine incense in the right side hall, proving to be sizable rewards, Yi-chun naturally wasn't satisfied to stop there and undeniably sought even more treasures. With anticipation and tension in his heart, Yi-chun broke through the protective barrier of the rear side hall and flew into the final hall. Once inside, Yi-chun saw rows of empty rooms again, just as bare. Having searched through dozens of rooms with not a single gain, Yi-chun was deeply disappointed. But then came the hall's remaining corner, which made Yi-chun call out in surprise. Sure enough, after passing through dozens of rooms, within an empty space surrounded by corridors emerged a vast medicinal garden. The garden had been divided into 8 sections, 3 of which had already been harvested. However, 5 sections remained filled with treasures of divine medicines glowing brilliantly. Even more exceptional, Yi-chun's eyes were directly drawn to 2 sections of the garden. Because, within these sections, dozens of plants he recognized so well were precisely the materials he had been searching for, a portion of the ingredients required for crafting the remaining law patterns for the eternal immortal divine body. To cultivate the eternal immortal divine body requires mastering 5 divine body law patterns: earth, fire, water, wind, and chaos. Back in the 10,000 Beasts domain, Mrs. He had prepared nearly all of the materials needed for these 5 divine body patterns, allowing Yi-chun to successfully cultivate the first earth divine pattern. However, the materials for the remaining 4, fire, water, wind, and chaos divine patterns, were still incomplete. It is well known that within the eternal immortal divine body, the later divine patterns grow increasingly powerful. Even with just the earth divine pattern, Yi-chun's divine body stood unmatched, and naturally, he sought to master the remaining patterns. But beyond the immense difficulty of cultivation, simply lacking the required materials already halted Yi-chun's progression entirely. Now, finding the necessary materials in the medicinal garden within the abandoned land naturally left Yi-chun overjoyed. Purple bellflower. This is the essential material to craft the fire element divine body law pattern. Cold wind grass. This is one of the 72 main ingredients for crafting the wind element divine body law pattern. And crystal spirit profound leaf, heavenly wound flower, redwood root. There are as many as 28 materials here that I need. Moreover, these materials are all in their mature phase, with even higher ages than the minimum required for refining the eternal immortal divine body. These far exceed expectations. Yi-chun meticulously counted the medicinal plants he recognized one by one and eagerly gathered them. After collecting these materials, Yi-chun assessed the inventory of his stored materials, and his mind and spirit shook. With these materials from the medicinal garden, I've gathered all the ingredients for the wind divine pattern for the eternal immortal divine body. Now, only fire, water, and chaos remain lacking. Does this mean that after cultivating the earth divine pattern, I can now proceed with cultivating the wind divine pattern? How could Yi-chun not be utterly thrilled? The wind divine pattern of the eternal immortal divine body ranks second only to the chaos divine pattern among the 5 divine patterns. Being able to gather the materials for such a critical divine pattern naturally left Yi-chun deeply satisfied. Once he mastered this pattern, the capabilities of his eternal immortal divine body would grow exponentially stronger. After a surge of joy and excitement, Yi-chun shifted his attention to the remaining unharvested plants in the medicinal garden. Cultivating the wind divine pattern for the eternal immortal divine body cannot be accomplished in an instant, and with only 3 days allotted for the treasure hunt, Yi-chun clearly wouldn't begin cultivation then. His priority was to locate and secure all valuable treasures first. However, besides the plants that Yi-chun could identify, there were many medicinal plants remaining that Yi-chun could not recognize at all. Judging by the distribution of the medicinal garden, the closer to the center, the more precious the medicinal plants appear. Those 3 sections harvested by the entity beyond the sovereign belong to the innermost areas, whereas the sections containing the materials for the eternal immortal divine body were on the outermost edges. I suspect the remaining unidentified medicinal plants might be even more extraordinary than those for the eternal immortal divine body. With a swift movement, Yi Chun first gathered all unidentified plants in the two sections containing the materials for the eternal immortal divine body. Next, he approached the plants cultivated in the last three sections. Each of these three sections contained one unique type of medicinal plant. It was unclear whether the entity beyond the sovereign had left these plants behind due to their immaturity or if they were perpetual producers, harvested from time to time, with fresh growth always emerging. Yi Chun first examined the plants in the first section. These were golden flowering plants, with each plant bearing a fully bloomed golden flower. Within the section, Yi Chun counted a total of 98 plants, each carrying 98 golden flowers. Although Yi Chun wasn't sure of their uses, simply observing the divine light emitted by these golden flowers made it clear they were no ordinary objects. When Yi Chun attempted to harvest them, he discovered that the stalks of these plants were incomparably sturdy, far tougher compared to the plants needed for the eternal immortal divine body. Ultimately, Yi Chun summoned the mysterious spirit Thousand Sword Skills to sever the stems, collecting the golden flowers into the ice snow jade pendant. Unknown to Yi Chun, after he stored the 98 golden flowers inside the ice snow jade pendant, Xiaojiu, a spirit within, revealed an expression of profound shock. With disbelief etched across Xiaojiu's face, it muttered, "These are primordial gold divine flowers. How could Yi Chun possibly discover primordial gold divine flowers?" Ever since entering Heavenly God Mountain, Xiaojiu's divine sense had been restricted within the ice snow jade pendant, rendering it unable to communicate with Yi Chun. Otherwise, Xiaojiu would have eagerly told Yi Chun just how exceptional these primordial gold divine flowers were. Back in the medicinal garden, Yi Chun, oblivious to Xiaojiu's reaction, continued harvesting the 98 golden flowers. After finishing, he attempted to gather the roots and stems of these plants but found them impossible to collect. He then proceeded to the next section of the medicinal garden. Adjacent to the golden flowers was a section filled with 3-foot-tall green plants, bearing small red fruit about the size of peach pits. When Yi Chun plucked one of the red fruits, it astonishingly shriveled in his hand, withering into nothingness until even the seed dissolved into thin air. Could it be that they can't be picked directly? Yi Chun tapped into his divine power to envelope the fruit, but the outcome was the same. Once detached from the plant, the fruit collapsed into the void. This astonished Yi Chun endlessly. These red fruits seemed impossible to gather. Yi Chun tried numerous methods, from spatial treasures to divine soul power, yet nothing proved effective. Each fruit dissolved as soon as it left the host plant. At last, Yi Chun even tried uprooting the entire plant, only to find the plant, along with its fruits, disintegrating into nothingness the moment it left the soil of the medicinal garden. Yi Chun stood helpless. Though he was sure these red fruits were extraordinary, he remained unable to claim them. What Yi Chun didn't know, however, was that within the mystical realm deep within Heavenly God Mountain, voices of aged guardians were speaking. One voice chuckled. "This abandoned land seems to have been left behind by the 1,000 agriculture divine monarch. The boy may easily gather most things here, but he'd need the monarch's legendary jade striker to harvest the heavenly fate fruit. Without it, it's impossible." Another laugh echoed. "Indeed, the heavenly fate fruit is exceptional. Even in the cosmic sea, it remains highly prized for us divine masters. For mortals of this universe, eating even one heavenly fate fruit would extend their lifespan by 10,000 years and render them gods overnight. Alas, as Heavenly God Mountain's guardians, we cannot claim the treasures hidden here, nor can this boy. This fruit remains beyond both our reach." Yi Chun was entirely unaware of the Sentinel's dialogue, nor the profound significance of the uncollectible red fruits. After exhausting all possibilities for collecting the fruits, Yi Chun advanced toward the final section of the medicinal garden. In this section grew plants resembling green scallions. The top half was brilliant jade green, while the bottom half gleamed with spotless white. When Yi Chun used his divine power to dig out the plant, tendrils of interwoven green and white threads suddenly emerged from the plant, tightly enveloping his divine power and swiftly devouring it. When Yi Chun used the techniques of his eternal immortal divine body and reached out directly to grab one of the plants, the green-white threads wrapped tightly around his hand, dangerously entangling his divine body. Reacting swiftly, Yichen activated the mysterious Spirit Thousand Sword skills to cut through the threads, only narrowly averting being completely ensnared by the strange plant strands. Chapter 892 The Astonished Hua Shuilian. The more troublesome thing is that the green and white threads emitted by these plants seem endless. Yichen cut off some, but then more threads burst out. In the end, Yichen spent more than 2 days to successfully excavate 2 such plants and sealed them in 2 medicine boxes, storing them inside the ice snow jade pendant. Considering the time left before leaving the abandoned land, Yichen decided not to continue digging for more of these plants. What Yichen didn't know was that these 2 plants, which he spent so much effort to collect, would bring him the greatest fortune from this trip to the abandoned land. Of course, that's a story for another time. At this moment, Yichen doesn't know the use of these plants. After searching the entire medicine garden and the sub-palace at the back one more time without any new discoveries, Yichen flew back to the square in the center of the Great Hall clusters. The 3 days for treasure hunting are almost over. Soon, I'll be able to leave this abandoned land and return to the first layer of the great world of Heavenly God Mountain. Standing in the void above the square, Yichen's eyes flashed with sharp light. In these 3 days of treasure hunting, he had great gains. He found over 20 meditation cushions that can improve cultivation speed, a copper gong and wooden mallet that can absorb divine power and even emit sovereign-level binding power, and divine incense that is greatly beneficial for cultivation. Additionally, he discovered eternal God body cultivation materials in the medicine garden, the mysterious 98 golden flowers, and those 2 green onion-like plants. The discovery of the eternal God body cultivation materials alone made Yichen's trip to the abandoned land worthwhile. However, this was not the time to consider these treasures. Yichen had more important matters awaiting him. That is, to complete the task of the first layer of the great world of Heavenly God Mountain. Having been delayed in the world of the Death Fruit for some time, there are only 20 days left to complete the task of the first layer of the great world. I haven't completed my task yet. Yichen's task in the first layer of the great world requires him to kill 10 blue light assassins and villains and 3 purple light assassins and villains. At this point, he has only killed 7 blue light assassins and villains, and not even 1 purple light assassin and villain. This added a lot of pressure on Yichen, who originally felt he was not under much pressure to complete the task. After all, if he couldn't complete the task and was sealed in the first layer of the great world, it would be over for him. Once I leave this abandoned land, I'll focus on completing the task first, regardless of other matters. Now, for me, never mind blue light assassins and purple light assassins. I can even handle stronger enemies like the lower immortal divine venerable level golden light assassins. Yichen spent months trapped in the world of the death fruit, not in vain. He created the origin/second style, capable of slicing through the world of the death fruit. So how could he fear the small fry blue light and purple light assassins? He must complete his task. Time quickly passed. The moment came for Yichen to leave the abandoned land and return to the first layer of the great world of Heavenly God Mountain. Chaotic Wind Sea Area. It is a huge sea area located on the west side of the first layer of the great world of Heavenly God Mountain. The name Chaotic Wind Sea Area was given by some divine kings of the Chenjua Divine Kingdom. This is because violent hurricanes continuously sweep across the sea surface and void, making the entire sea area seem to be in eternal chaos. At this moment, in the void of the chaotic wind sea area, more than 30 figures are frantically fleeing, while behind them, 7 figures exuding purple divine light leisurely pursue the group of 30-something people. The 7 figures do not rush to overtake the 30-something figures ahead, but instead seem to toy with them, maintaining a leisurely speed so they are neither distanced nor caught up quickly. The faces of these 7 figures wear mocking smiles, appearing completely relaxed. But the 30-something figures fleeing in front are drenched in sweat, their clothes soaked, and their divine power has been significantly depleted. A glance at their garments reveals, to great shock, that these fleeing figures are actually over 30 divine kings from the strongest Chenjua Divine Kingdom among the 5 competing in the Heavenly God Mountain this time. Among them, even Hua Shuilian, a top expert ranked in the first area of the Heavenly God list, is included, led by Hua Xuelian. More than 30 divine kings from the Chenjue divine kingdom are being chased into a frantic escape by just 7 people? A look at the 7 figures chasing the divine kings of the Chenjue divine kingdom reveals they are the 7 upper, heavenly divine venerable level purple light assassins from the domain of sin. Moreover, these 7 purple light assassins seem no weaker than Hua Xuelian. Otherwise, Hua Xuelian would not be forced to a last-ditch escape. At this moment, Hua Xuelian and the 35 divine kings of the Chenjue divine kingdom are filled with immense regret. Originally, they were exploring the first layer of the great world of Heavenly God Mountain. After gathering, they found their tasks almost complete. Then they accidentally discovered a secret ground in the chaotic Wind Sea area. Of course, they ventured into the secret ground to seek treasures. Accordingly, the group of 36 from the Chenjue divine kingdom, led by Hua Xuelian, headed towards the chaotic Wind Sea area. After months of effort, this group finally managed to gain some benefits from that great secret land, only to be targeted by 7 purple light assassins shortly after leaving. Initially, with a heavyweight like Hua Xuelian, ranked 3rd on the Heavenly God list, the people of the Chenjue divine kingdom were not afraid of ordinary purple light assassins. But unexpectedly, only 2 of the purple light assassins engaged, and Hua Xuelian was already at a disadvantage. This deeply shocked the group from the Chenjue divine kingdom. Clearly, these 7 purple light assassins are top-level experts among the upper heavenly divine venerables. If Hua Xuelian cannot withstand them, only death awaits them. In the end, the 7 purple light assassins said their task was completed, and they'd play with the Chenjue divine kingdom people for a bit. They gave the divine kings of the Chenjue divine kingdom 10 days to escape their grasp and promised to spare them if they succeeded. This is the only reason the group of 36 from the Chenjue divine kingdom didn't meet a sudden death. But even as they fled, the people of the Chenjue divine kingdom realized they couldn't escape the clutches of the 7 purple light assassins. They have been fleeing for 7 days now and still haven't shaken off their pursuers. The group from the Chenjue divine kingdom also realized they were nothing more than playthings for these purple light assassins, reduced to humiliation by the ridicule of their pursuers. Towards the end, many even contemplated giving up. After all, death seemed inevitable, and they refused to be toyed with by these assassins like cats with mice. Only Hua Xuelian insisted on not giving up until the last moment, and it was his persistence that kept the group from the Chenjue divine kingdom flying on. In the midst of the escape, a divine king from the Chenjue divine kingdom transmitted a voice to Hua Xuelian, saying, "Brother Hua, what do we do? We can't keep this up. We're not going to get away." Hua Xuelian's face was grim, but he gritted his teeth and said, "We have to keep fleeing. Hang in there for 2 more days. I previously encountered Lin Shan and the others. If we have more help, we might escape the encirclement of these purple light assassins." Of course, Hua Xuelian knew that this idea had very slim chances for survival. On one hand, he was not sure if Lin Shan and the others would still be in the area he had previously encountered them. On the other hand, even if he met Lin Shan and the others, they might not be a match for these 7 purple light assassins unless Lin Shan, ranked 1st on the Heavenly God list, had made a new breakthrough in cultivation. However, Hua Xuelian would not give up even the slightest chance of survival. Facing certain death versus a sliver of hope, he would obviously choose the latter. Even knowing that the 7 purple light assassins were deliberately toying with them, he intended to seize this opportunity. Flee! Keep fleeing! Keep fleeing until we reach the eastern boundary of the chaotic Wind Sea area, where we have been before. Hua Xuelian communicated to the 35 divine kings by his side, all of whom gritted their teeth, continued to restore divine power, and kept fleeing desperately. Behind these divine kings, one of the 7 purple light assassins spoke to their leader, a black-bearded man. "Boss Yao, it seems these people's goal in fleeing is quite serious." Another assassin chuckled. "Let them flee. Let them seek help from other adventurers. The more people we encounter and kill, the more treasures we can take. Furthermore, those they seek help from are likely among the top few on the Heavenly God list, which means our harvest could be even greater." The leader of the 7 purple light assassins, Boss Yao, his eyes flashing keenly, sneered, "Humph! We completed our task early and even had an unexpected gain, causing our combat power to soar. I am now no weaker than the golden light assassins who entered the first layer of the great world of Heavenly God Mountain. Why would I fear these little adventurers? Let them seek help. We should seize the opportunity to gather more treasures before we leave the Heavenly God Mountain after completing the task." These 7 purple light assassins didn't let the group from the Chenjua Divine Kingdom escape by intention. On one hand, they wanted to toy with these people. On the other hand, they harbored greater greed, wanting to draw in more adventurers to kill them all at once. Amidst both sides harboring their own intentions, one fleeing and the other pursuing, both sides suddenly noticed a shocking divine light rising from the vast sea ahead. Subsequently, the already violent winds in the sea area intensified to even more frightening levels, enough so that many divine kings from the Chenjua Divine Kingdom couldn't withstand the sudden surge in power and wanted to change direction. At this moment, everyone saw that the shocking divine light ahead suddenly split into two, and then, amidst the divine light and the violent winds, appeared a figure of a young man with flying black hair. When Hua Shuelian saw the face of this figure, he exclaimed in surprise, "Yi-chan!" Chapter 893-. Terrifying the Soul. After entering the first layer of the Heavenly God Mountain's great world, Hua Shuelian had separated from Yi-chan. Hua Shuelian never thought he would encounter Yi-chan here. Thinking of Yi-chan as one of the formidable figures on the Heavenly God list, ranking just below him, Hua Shuelian's heart lifted with delight. If Yi-chan had made a breakthrough, then perhaps there was indeed a chance he could help him and the divine kings of the Chenjua Divine Kingdom escape their crisis. However, after Hua Shuelian probed Yi-chan's aura, his expression instantly changed. He discovered that Yi-chan remained at the lower God King realm he had first encountered him in, without the slightest hint of a breakthrough. Yi-chan's previous ranking on the Heavenly God list was already below his. Now, without advancing in realm, the 7 elite purple light assassins that even he couldn't contend with were evidently beyond Yi-chan's ability to handle. Hua Shuelian's heart was consumed with anxiety. He hadn't waited for a savior, but instead might drag Yi-chan into calamity. Thinking of this, Hua Shuelian dared not hesitate any longer. Without considering why Yi-chan had appeared here, he hastily shouted toward him, "Yi-chan, run! There are 7 formidable upper, heavenly divine, venerable level purple light assassins behind us. We can't fight them. If we don't flee now, it will be the end of us." While shouting at Yi-chan, Hua Shuelian led the fleeing divine kings of the Chenjua Divine Kingdom in Yi-chan's direction. At this moment, the countless divine kings of the Chenjua Divine Kingdom also noticed that Yi-chan's realm hadn't advanced, and each couldn't help but show a bitter smile. They realized they hadn't waited for a powerful rescuer. While Yi-chan was strong, he still couldn't save them. The divine kings of the Chenjua Divine Kingdom were flying desperately. Yi-chan gazed at the fleeing Hua Shuelian and the 35 divine kings of the Chenjua Divine Kingdom, then at the 7 purple light assassins chasing them. He was momentarily stunned. What a coincidence. I leave the abandoned land, get transmitted back to the first layer of the Heavenly God Mountain's great world, and actually run into Hua Shuelian and his group? Are they being hunted down? 7 purple light assassins, huh? If even Hua Shuelian is fleeing from them, these individuals must rank among the strongest of the purple light assassins. Despite having just left the abandoned land and appearing amidst this boundless sea domain, Yi-chan's mind swiftly grasped the situation. However, Yi-chan did not follow Hua Shuelian's urgent appeal nor join the fleeing members of the Chenjua Divine Kingdom. Instead, he continued standing in the void. In an instant, Hua Shuelian and the 36 others reached Yi-chan's side. Seeing that Yi-chan hadn't fled, Hua Shuelian hurriedly grabbed Yi-chan by the arm. "Yi-chan, run quickly." But Yi-chan simply waved him off with a smile. "No need to panic, Hua Daoist." With those words, Yi-chan turned his gaze directly toward the 7 purple light assassins. Yi-chan's calm demeanor left Hua Shuelian stunned. He hesitated, unconsciously halting beside Yi-chan. The 35 divine kings of the Chenjue divine kingdom also couldn't understand his composure. Could it be that Yi Chun feared nothing, not even these 7 purple light assassins? Or had he simply been scared senseless? But judging by his serene smile, he didn't seem frightened at all. While the divine kings of Chenjue stood beside Yi Chun, the 7 purple light assassins had closed in as well, stopping at a distance of several hundred meters from Yi Chun. The leader of these assassins, a black-bearded man known as Boss Yao, squinted his eyes and stared at Yi Chun. Seeing Yi Chun as only a lower god king, coupled with hearing Hua Shuolian call his name, Boss Yao's eyes gleamed as he spoke toward Yi Chun. So, you must be Yi Chun, ranked 4th on the heavenly god list? To reach 4th place while still at the lower god king realm, impressive. But you're unlucky to cross paths with us today. Hand over your treasures obediently, and we'll leave you a whole corpse. Being suddenly transmitted into the sea domain, it appears you've just exited some secret realm. I'm sure your body carries some fine goods. As he spoke, Boss Yao licked his lips greedily. He had allowed Hua Shuolian's group to flee earlier just to encounter more challengers. Now that Yi Chun had appeared, they would take care of him first, snatch his treasures, and then move on to their next victim. As Boss Yao spoke, the remaining 6 purple light assassins laughed oddly and surrounded Yi Chun. One of them, a scar-faced assassin, sneered at Yi Chun. Little brat, we let them escape but made no promise to spare whoever showed up after them. Heavenly God list 4th place? We've slain plenty of challengers, but never someone ranked in the top. This should be fun. As killers of the domain of sin, infamous for their countless murders, they obviously spared Yi Chun no mercy. Seeing these 7 deadly assassins targeting Yi Chun, the divine kings of the Chenjue divine kingdom were in shock. Hua Shuolian's heart sank even further. Yet after hesitating for a few moments, he still stood firmly by Yi Chen's side. Hua senior brother? Hua senior brother. The divine kings of the Chenjue divine kingdom, who had considered fleeing further, were now dissuaded by Hua Shuolian's stance. Instead, they dared not retreat. After all, without Hua Shuolian leading them, fleeing would still lead to death. Some divine kings even secretly blamed Yi Chun for not escaping with them. Was he planning to drag them into death as well? Seeing Hua Shuolian's stance, Boss Yao chuckled coldly. What's this? You want to stand and fight alongside Yi Chun? Ha! You were already defeated by us before. Now you dare challenge us again? If you're not running away, leave your life here. With that, Boss Yao waved his hand and instructed 2 assassins. Bai Lin, Bai Shang, you 2, kill them. Responding instantly, the scar-faced assassin and a bald-headed assassin stepped forward. The 2 sneered as they cracked their knuckles. 2 little fellows, time to die. Feeling the overwhelming aura emitted by the duo, much stronger than the previous assassins he had faced, Hua Shuolian's heart tightened. He called out to Yi Chun in alarm. Yi Chun, be careful. At this moment, Hua Shuolian heard Yi Chun's calm voice. Hua Daoist, I still need to kill 3 purple light assassins to complete my mission in the first layer of the Heavenly God Mountain's great world. These 2, don't take them from me. I'll handle them myself. With those words, Yi Chun stepped forward, positioning himself in front of Hua Shuolian. What? Hua Shuolian was dumbfounded by Yi Chun's declaration. These 2 assassins, whom even Hua Shuolian and Yi Chun together stood no chance against, were now being claimed by Yi Chun to fight alone? Had Yi Chun lost his sanity? Hua Shuolian had stepped in to stall for time, intending to make Yi Chun recognize the futility of fighting back so they could flee together. He had never considered actually engaging in combat. The divine kings of the Chenjue divine kingdom, watching from a distance, were similarly stunned by Yi Chen's bold words. Meanwhile, Bai Lin and Bai Shang, the 2 purple light assassins, laughed loudly at the remark. Ha! This brat has gone mad. He thinks his rank of 4th on the heavenly god list makes him untouchable? Even the first-ranked would not dare spout nonsense in front of us. They were about to mock him further when Yi Chun interrupted. Quiet. I'll give you 10 seconds to leave your last words. Last words? As elite purple light assassins, Bai Lin and Bai Shang had slain countless mighty figures. Never before had they suffered such insolence. They were enraged beyond measure by Yi Chen's words. "Brat, we initially only planned to kill you. Now we'll make sure to dismember you completely. Let's see who gets spared to leave last words." Boom! Boom! In an instant, Bai Lin and Bai Shang erupted with overwhelming auras. Their power levels, nearly at that of the immortal divine venerable realm, marked them as peak existences within the upper heavenly divine venerable tier. Without pause, Bai Lin and Bai Shang ignored Hua Shuilian entirely and lunged toward Yi Chun. They intended to destroy Yi Chun utterly. Seeing Bai Lin and Bai Shang closing in on Yi Chun, the 35 divine kings of the Chenjue divine kingdom trembled in terror before their terrifying aura. Even Hua Shuilian involuntarily staggered backward under the oppressive pressure. In this dire moment, as the divine kings of Chenjue were paralyzed with fear, Yi Chun faced Bai Lin and Bai Shang's joint attack without the slightest intention to retreat. Instead, he stepped forward through the void, his right hand assuming the motion of grasping an invisible sword. The first stance of the origin slash. Yi Chen's quiet voice echoed. At that instant, all eyes witnessed a pale golden divine sword manifest in Yi Chen's hand before unleashing a sky-piercing sword beam. The beam burst forth in a flash, slashing wildly toward Bai Lin and Bai Shang. Then, a moment that would utterly astonish everyone present unfolded. The two elite purple light assassins, one step away from the immortal divine venerable realm, peak entities among the upper heavenly divine venerable tier, failed to even reach Yi Chun. Instead, Yi Chen's single sword beam directly split Bai Lin and Bai Shang into halves. Instantaneously, their life force dissipated, and their lifeless corpses plummeted into the ocean below. What? Nobody could have imagined that Yi Chen's seemingly effortless strike would wield such immense power. What was even more terrifying, the residual energy from Yi Chen's sword beam nearly obliterated another nearby assassin, who was watching and waiting with amusement. Had it not been for his swift reaction to dodge in the nick of time, he might have perished alongside Bai Lin and Bai Shang. Chapter 894 1 verses 5. Shock. The entire crowd instantly plunged into shock. No one could have imagined that the two infamous purple light assassins, whom even Hua Shuilian couldn't handle, would both perish simultaneously in one strike by Yi Chen's hand. At this moment, the 35 divine kings of Chenjue Divine Kingdom were on the verge of ecstatic shouts. Earlier, they hardly believed that Yi Chun could save them. Some even resented Yi Chun for not escaping with them, blaming him for dragging them down. But now, these divine kings of Chenjue Divine Kingdom realized that the Yi Chun standing before them was no longer the one ranked fourth on the heavenly god list, weaker than Hua Shuilian. The current Yi Chun appeared to be far more powerful than Hua Shuilian. Hope began to surge within them. Yi Chun might very well become their savior. Hua Shuilian's shock at this moment was even greater than that of the other divine kings. Having faced off against these purple light assassins himself, he knew better than anyone how terrifying they were. Yet now, Yi Chun had slain two of them in an instant. This felt unreal to Hua Shuilian, like a dream. Hua Shuilian simply couldn't believe that Yi Chun, whose realm had not even broken through, had a combat power this formidable. As the divine kings of Chenjue Divine Kingdom were reeling from shock and joy, the remaining 5 purple light assassins on the other side froze with terror. What kind of technique is this? What kind of swordsmanship is this? What kind of divine arts? The remaining purple light assassins had never seen such killing techniques from Yi Chun. Yet, in an instant, 2 of them had already perished at his hands. The rest were utterly stunned. Even their leader, the bearded man Boss Yao, felt an overwhelming sense of danger in that moment. Despite his exceptional strength, even Boss Yao could not discern the origins of Yi Chen's killing move nor gauge Yi Chen's limits. For an instant, Boss Yao even entertained the thought of fleeing. However, just as this thought arose, Yi Chen's voice cut through the air. "I need to kill 3 purple light assassins. I've already killed 2. Among the rest of you, who wants to come forward?" Boss Yao's eyes flickered as Yi Chen's fearless gaze locked onto his own. At the same time, Yi Chen's piercing gaze swept across the other purple light assassins. Boss! Boss! The remaining purple light assassins, none anywhere near as strong as Boss Yao, were utterly incapable of standing up to Yi Chen. When they heard Yi Chen's words, none dared step forward. They all turned to Boss Yao for help. They knew that if Boss Yao abandoned them, they were likely the next ones to fall. Boss Yao's eyes flickered briefly before directly addressing Yi Chen. Yi Chen, if we send out one more person for you to kill, will you stop after that? Surrender. Boss Yao's tone suggested that he had no intention of opposing Yi Chen further. He was prepared to offer someone up and reconcile with him. Boss Yao's words caused the hearts of the remaining 4 purple light assassins to sink. But they understood well, being hardened criminals of the domain of sin, if the situation were reversed, they too would rather send someone to die than take the risk themselves. However, now it seemed that the one sent to die might be them, which deeply unsettled them. Meanwhile, the divine kings of Chenjua Divine Kingdom were practically leaping for joy. Not only had Yi Chen slain 2 purple light assassins, but now even Boss Yao was considering yielding to him. If Yi Chen agreed, their survival would be assured. Is this the pressure of a true powerhouse? With just one move, he's killed 2 opponents, and the remaining 5 are too terrified to fight. The divine kings of Chenjua Divine Kingdom were now filled with unparalleled admiration and gratitude toward Yi Chen. Many even hoped Yi Chen would accept Boss Yao's proposal, killing just one more and avoiding any further risks. However, they saw Yi Chen shake his head after hearing Boss Yao's words. Yi Chen's gaze fixed directly on Boss Yao as he said, "You want me to kill one person and stop? When did I ever say I'd stop after killing just one? If you had fled as soon as you encountered me, perhaps I would have only slain 3 of you. But now, I have no such intention. No such intention." The meaning behind Yi Chen's words was clear. Even if he slew one more, he would not stop there. These heinous assassins of the domain of sin were mortal enemies of challengers entering the heavenly God Mountain, their hands stained with the blood of countless challengers. Not to mention the crimes they committed before entering the domain of sin. Yi Chen had no reason to let them go. Boss Yao's face twisted in fury. "Yi Chen, are you mocking us? Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Boss Yao had initially planned to resolve the situation by sacrificing one person, as he couldn't fathom Yi Chen's capabilities and wanted to avoid taking risks. However, Yi Chen's words solidified his resolve for a decisive battle to the death. Yi Chen had no intention of stopping. Thus, the 5 remaining purple light assassins resolved to surround and kill Yi Chen. "Let's attack together. Kill him." With a wave of his hand, Boss Yao called his 4 companions to action. Boom! 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 The remaining 4 immediately unleashed their surging aura and surrounded Yi Chen in formation. Of the 7 purple light assassins, 2 had already fallen, leaving 5. If no one was to be sacrificed, then the best chance was to act together as one. With Boss Yao joining the fray, the remaining 4 naturally would give their all to fight Yi Chen. In their minds, their odds of winning were greater. Seeing these 5 assassins surround Yi Chen, Hua Shulian's mind stirred, and he flew forward, saying, "Yi Chen, I'll assist you." But Yi Chen merely smiled and shook his head. "Hua Daoist, just help me hold the line. If I can't handle them, then we act together." Hua Shulian hesitated, asking uncertainly, "Yi Chen, are you truly confident facing all 5 of them alone?" Yi Chen nodded, 90% confident. What Hua Shulian didn't know was that Yi Chen's confidence actually reached 100%. After months of reflection in the world of the death fruit, Yi Chen had now mastered an even greater portion of the starry origin power, enabling him to unleash the 2nd stage of Origin Slash. With Origin Slash's 2nd stage, Yi Chen could even kill a lower immortal divine venerable, so the superior heavenly divine venerables were negligible by comparison. What's more, Yi Chen still had aces up his sleeve, such as the blue extreme ice flame. Rather than letting Hua Shulian intervene prematurely and disrupt his flow, It was better for Yi Chan to settle things directly through a 1-on-5 face-off. Upon hearing Yi Chan confidently say 90%, Hua Shuilian, though stunned, nodded and retreated. On the other side, led by Boss Yao, the 5 assassins were enraged, laughing coldly. One person against the 5 of us, claiming 90% certainty? Even a lower immortal divine venerable wouldn't dare make such arrogant claims. Boss Yao suddenly raised his palm and commanded the other 4, "Don't hold back. Unleash your full power and eradicate Yi Chan at once." Boom! 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 As Boss Yao's words fell, all 4 purple light assassins unleashed an overwhelming combat presence, frenziedly activating their divine weapons and artifacts. Among their arsenal was a chill light divine hook, a pitch-black divine spear, and even a blood bead treasure. Boss Yao himself no longer masked his aura, which immediately surged to the level of a lower immortal divine venerable. Simultaneously, Boss Yao clasped his hands together and summoned a blood-colored battle armor. The next moment, all 5 assassins, divine hooks, spears, treasures, and their murderous intents combined, charged at Yi Chan in a frenzied assault. Upon seeing Boss Yao emit the aura of a lower immortal divine venerable, the divine kings of Chenjua Divine Kingdom were once again terrified. Some even gasped aloud. This purple light assassin has been hiding his strength. He must have broken through recently. A lower immortal divine venerable's combat power. That's something only golden light assassins possess. Nobody expected this unexpected twist. Hua Shuilian, likewise stunned, couldn't tell if Yi Chan could withstand this assault. As the divine kings of Chenjua Divine Kingdom showed panicked expressions, Boss Yao laughed menacingly. Now you understand my true strength? Too late. I didn't intend to fight further, but now that I've started, not only will I kill Yi Chan, but I'll also use your blood as tribute. The divine kings of Chenjua Divine Kingdom shrank back in fear, and some even considered fleeing again. Yet, when they looked at Yi Chan, they saw that despite facing Boss Yao's aura of a lower immortal divine venerable, Yi Chan showed not a trace of fear. Yi Chan's brow furrowed slightly. It seems there is indeed an expert among them. Without waiting for the divine kings to decide whether to flee or stay and watch, Yi Chan took his first action. Whoosh! In an instant, an overwhelming aura erupted from Yi Chan, a radiant golden aura belonging only to the starry origin power, infinitely stronger than what he had displayed earlier against Bai Lin and Bai Shang. Next, Yi Chan flipped his hand, and a golden divine sword materialized in his grasp. Simultaneously, overlapping with the golden sword, a second appeared, a dark divine sword. Yin and Yang divine swords. Yi Chan was preparing to unleash the second stage of Origin Slash. Whoosh! As soon as the 2 divine swords emerged, they vibrated, and an unmatched surging starry origin power poured into them. Then Yi Chan slashed toward Boss Yao and his companions. What an awe-inspiring strike! This sword had already been unleashed once before. Back then, Yi Chan had annihilated an entire small world with it. Now, as Yi Chan struck again, it was equally astonishing and extraordinary. With one slash, the sword's brilliance spread outward in waves. The immediate range of 10,000 zhang surrounding Yi Chan was entirely consumed by the shredding divine light. Crack! 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 In an instant, the divine weapons and artifacts facing Yi Chan, whether chill light divine hook, pitch black divine spear, or blood bead treasure, were pulverized into dust. Even the remaining 4 purple light assassins were obliterated within the endless radiance, reduced to fragments and then swallowed by the void. Even more terrifying, the sheer cutting power in that range of 10,000 zhang annihilated not only the massive ocean's waters but even the raging hurricanes atop it, leaving behind a colossal cavity in the sea. As the 4 assassins died, Boss Yao was overcome with terror. Even with the combat power of a lower immortal divine venerable, he felt utterly inadequate against Yi Chan's strike. In his shock, Boss Yao's blood armor shattered instantly, and both his arms were severed in the blink of an eye. Chapter 895-. Sweeping through the Valley of the Wicked. This sent Boss Yao into utter panic. Seeing the seemingly endless force of annihilation about to completely shatter his vitality, Boss Yao could no longer care about his crushed blood armor and severed arms. He cried out in desperation to Yi Chun, "Yi Chun, spare me. Spare my life. I'm willing to offer up all my treasures. Just let me go." Bang! Amid Boss Yao's frantic pleas, Yi Chun made a casual grasp in the void. That immeasurable destructive force formed a storm capable of obliterating everything, howling around Boss Yao, yet it did not directly finish him off. It was clear, however, that if Yi Chun wished, he could kill Boss Yao on the spot in an instant. Looking at the pathetic and begging Boss Yao, Yi Chun snorted coldly, "Treasures? If I kill you, I can naturally take all your treasures. Why would I need you to offer them?" As he spoke, Yi Chun reached downward. Following his gesture, the spatial treasures dropped from the slain purple light assassins and villains flew out from the storm and landed in his hands. Seeing Yi Chun's expression, Boss Yao's face turned pale with fright. At this moment, he could no longer think about anything else. This was no joke. Earlier, he dared to oppose Yi Chun, but after just one exchange, Boss Yao realized that even with combat power at the level of a lower immortal divine venerable, he had no chance of surviving before Yi Chun. How could he dare resist any further? Boss Yao had only one thought now. No matter the cost, his priority was to stay alive. "Yi Chun, most of my treasures are stored in another area and not with me. Spare my life, and I will take you to that location and offer you all my treasures. Rest assured, although that area is filled with countless assassins and villains, none of them are as strong as me. They won't pose any threat to you." Worried that Yi Chun might not want to take the risk, Boss Yao hastily added more explanation in a panicked tone. Hearing Boss Yao's words, Yi Chun fell silent, deep in thought. Thump, thump, thump. As Yi Chun pondered, every second felt like an eternity to Boss Yao. His fate was now entirely in Yi Chun's hands. He didn't even dare to breathe heavily, terrified that the next moment, Yi Chun would take his life. However, Yi Chun's next statement finally allowed Boss Yao's tightly held breath to relax just a little. Looking at Boss Yao, Yi Chun asked, "You mentioned that the location of your treasures also has other assassins and villains?" Boss Yao nodded repeatedly. Yes. That place is what we call the Valley of the Wicked. All the assassins and villains tasked with killing you challengers are gathered in that valley. Most of them are red light, orange light, and yellow light assassins and villains. Assassins like me, purple light class, are rare. Hearing Boss Yao's explanation, Yi Chun nodded. Very well. Lead the way. If there are treasures, they're worth my attention. Sparing your life is not out of the question. Although Yi Chun had not outright promised to spare his life, Boss Yao was already beyond caring about such details. As long as there was even the slightest chance for survival, he wouldn't give it up. He hurriedly responded, "I will take you to the Valley of the Wicked immediately." Yi Chun's decision to temporarily spare Boss Yao wasn't solely about the treasures Boss Yao had mentioned. What Yi Chun cared more about was the information Boss Yao had shared, that the Valley of the Wicked hosted a sizable gathering of assassins and villains. At present, Yi Chun had already slain 7 blue light assassins and villains and 6 purple light assassins and villains. To complete his task, he still needed to eliminate 3 more blue light assassins. With the existence of such a valley, Yi Chun naturally preferred not to waste further time hunting for blue light assassins elsewhere. He could simply head to the Valley of the Wicked and complete his task there. Furthermore, Yi Chun didn't mind the idea of completely leveling the so-called Valley of the Wicked. After all, the assassins and villains gathered there were undeniably heinous individuals. In carrying out their missions, they had slaughtered countless challengers, likely including divine kings from the Wanmu Mountain divine nation. Given the opportunity, Yi Chun saw no reason not to avenge those fallen divine kings. As for whether Boss Yao might take the opportunity to stab Yi Chun in the back, Yi Chun was unconcerned. This time, the highest-ranking assassins who had entered the first layer of the Heavenly God Mountain world were the Golden Light Assassins, and they had been confined to a dedicated area for the top 3 contenders on the Heavenly God list. Other assassins strongest were still only at Boss Yao's Purple Light level. Against these assassins, Yi Chun had no doubt he could handle them. However, Yi Chun did not have Boss Yao lead the way immediately. Instead, he turned to Hua Shuilian and the 35 divine kings from the Qianjue divine kingdom. Hua, fellow cultivators, what do you intend to do next? I'm preparing to head to this Valley of the Wicked. Would you like to come along? Hua Shuilian and the 35 divine kings of the Qianjue divine kingdom were completely stunned at this moment. They hadn't yet recovered from the shock of how the battle had unfolded. No one could have anticipated that Yi Chun, facing 5 opponents alone, would kill 4 of them in an instant. Even more unexpected was seeing the once overbearing Boss Yao of the purple light class grovel and beg for mercy before Yi Chun. It wasn't until Yi Chun spoke to them that their mind and spirit finally registered the situation. We survived. Those 7 purple light assassins have been slain, 6 are dead, and the last one is gravely injured. We're finally out of danger. Finally alive. Several divine kings from the Qianjue divine kingdom even knelt before Yi Chun directly. After all, it was Yi Chun who had truly saved their lives. Hua Shuilian also looked at Yi Chun in utter disbelief. She couldn't fathom how Yi Chun had grown so strong. Even with Boss Yao's combat power elevated to the level of a lower immortal divine venerable, he was no match for Yi Chun. Yi Chun isn't simply 4th on the heavenly god list. He's leagues beyond even the first, Lin Shan. Even if Lin Shan further increased his strength, he still wouldn't be Yi Chun's match. When asked by Yi Chun whether they wanted to join, Hua Shuilian immediately nodded eagerly. Yi Chun, I'll come with you. I also have something important to give you along the way. In the end, Hua Shuilian, along with 35 divine kings from the Qianjue divine kingdom, set out with Yi Chun, led by Boss Yao, toward the Valley of the Wicked. Those divine kings from the Qianjue divine kingdom were unwilling to part ways from Yi Chun and Hua Shuilian. Even if they had to leave, they would only do so once they found a safer area. While on the journey, Hua Shuilian took out a small white jade vial and handed it to Yi Chun. This was the important thing Hua Shuilian had mentioned earlier. What is this? Yi Chun looked at the vial, uncertain of its contents. Hua Shuilian smiled. Inside is a fate divine pill that can help break through realms. Yi Chun, you saved our lives. Words cannot express our gratitude. Earlier, in a secret ground, we obtained several fate divine pills. This one shall be your reward for saving us. Hua Shuilian didn't mention that during their expedition to the chaotic wind sea area, they had acquired a total of only 4 fate divine pills. Yes, only 4, each one precious beyond measure, capable of breaking through realms. Naturally, every single pill was invaluable. Originally, their group of 36 was supposed to divide them evenly. But now, as Yi Chun had saved their lives, everyone unanimously decided that 1 pill must be gifted to him. Even with just 4 pills, they resolved to offer one. On one hand, it was to repay Yi Chun for saving their lives. On the other, the divine kings of the Qianjue divine kingdom hoped to build goodwill with someone as powerful as Yi Chun. After all, in future dire situations, Yi Chun's casual intervention might save their lives. Compared to their lives, and considering they might not even receive a fate divine pill during the split, they were more than willing to offer one up. Yi Chun, you must accept this. This divine pill is shared among us, and it must constitute our gratitude for saving our lives. As Hua Shuilian spoke, the other divine kings from the Qianjue divine kingdom voiced their agreement. Hearing their words, and especially realizing this divine pill could help break through realms, Yi Chun's heart shook with emotion. With this pill, wouldn't that mean he could advance to the Middle God King realm? That was more valuable than any treasure. Yi Chun did not put on false modesty. After giving the group a deep bow, he stored the fate divine pill in his ice snow jade pendant. As a gesture of reciprocity, Yi Chun distributed treasures from the slain purple light assassins and villains to the divine kings of the Qianjue divine kingdom. These treasures were of minimal use to someone like Yi Chun, who even had ultimate heavenly artifacts. However, for the divine kings, these were treasures of immense value. After all, these were items belonging to purple light assassins at the superior heavenly divine venerable level. Naturally, they were incredibly precious to the divine kings. As Yichun, Hua Shuelian, and the rest conversed during their journey, before they knew it, they had left the chaotic Wind-Sea area behind and arrived at an immense valley. This valley, as Boss Yao had described, was the gathering place for countless assassins and villains, the Valley of the Wicked. At that moment, 2 blue light assassins were patrolling just outside the valley. Upon seeing Boss Yao, both arms severed, leading the way with dozens of divine kings following behind, the 2 blue light assassins were startled. They recognized Boss Yao as well. Boss Yao, how did you get so badly injured? Who are these people? Swish, swish. The 2 blue light assassins flew to the void several thousand feet before Yichun and his group, questioning Boss Yao while cautiously holding a transmission artifact in their hands. Clearly, they were prepared to report to the valley at the slightest hint of trouble. Boss Yao dared not make any move on his own. He looked to Yichun and asked, Yichun, should I take you directly into the valley to retrieve the treasures, or what do you wish to do? Yichun glanced at Boss Yao, then at the 2 blue light assassins whose faces were filled with vigilance, and finally at the immense Valley of the Wicked, which spanned hundreds of miles. Yichun smiled. Since we're already here, let's summon all the assassins and villains in the Valley of the Wicked. As he spoke, Yichun raised his hand and struck the void with his palm. A titanic palm shadow instantly filled the sky, completely enveloping the entire Valley of the Wicked. Then, with a deafening roar, the massive palm shadow descended and slammed into the valley. With Yichun's overwhelming combat power, even without unleashing a killing move, his strike aimed merely to force the assassins and villains to surface. Yet, it still flattened the entire Valley of the Wicked spanning hundreds of miles. The massive valley collapsed entirely, leaving countless deep craters scarring the earth. Simultaneously, clouds of dust erupted like a storm, engulfing the entire land in a furious shroud of chaos. What's happening? Who dares attack our Valley of the Wicked? Amid the chaotic dust storm, one figure after another shot out from the ruins of the valley in panic. In an instant, the air above the Valley of the Wicked was densely packed with a swarm of figures. Chapter 896, Bloodbath. Countless figures soared into the sky, numbering no less than 70 to 80,000. As soon as these people ascended into the void, they immediately spotted Yichun's group and their leading guide, Boss Yao. Boss Yao, what happened to you? Among the 70 to 80,000, there were nearly a dozen purple light assassins, hundreds of blue light assassins, and the rest were assassins and villains of varying ranks. Red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. Seeing that both of Boss Yao's arms had been severed, the strongest purple light and blue light assassins present narrowed their eyes sharply. They knew very well how formidable Boss Yao was. It could be said that Boss Yao's strength was at the pinnacle of the hierarchy within the Valley of the Wicked. Among the 70 to 80,000 assassins in the valley, only 3 other purple light assassins were on par with Boss Yao's power. The rest were unequivocally weaker. Now, with both of Boss Yao's arms severed, these powerful assassins and villains were utterly shocked. Who could possibly defeat Boss Yao? Then, everyone's gaze landed on Yichun, who stood beside Boss Yao. When they saw Yichun's demeanor and the respectful attitude Boss Yao displayed toward him, an incredulous thought arose in their minds. Could it be that this young man, merely at the lower God King realm, had severed Boss Yao's arms? A mere lower God King able to subdue Boss Yao, a superior heavenly divine venerable. Did this mean this young man was a terrifying combatant capable of crossing vast realm boundaries? Now, this demon-like figure had stepped into the Valley of the Wicked. What could he possibly want? Swish, swish, swish. Despite their cautiousness toward Yichun, the assassins of the valley, with their overwhelming numbers, still held little true fear. The purple and blue light assassins leading the masses harbored wariness but not submission. After all, Yichun's group numbered barely over 30, while they commanded 70 to 80,000 strong. Especially since there were 3 individuals in the valley whose strength rivaled Boss Yao's. They believed that no matter how formidable Yichun was against Boss Yao, he could never suppress every assassin in the valley. In an instant, the 3 strongest purple light assassins flew to the forefront, glaring at Yi Chen's group and shouting, "You wanderers, how dare you boldly burst into the Valley of the Wicked? If you don't state the reason for your intrusion, don't blame us for being merciless." These words were delivered cautiously, more out of wariness of Yi Chen than true restraint. Otherwise, wandering adventurers who stumbled into this land would normally have been eradicated on sight. As the three purple light assassins questioned them, the 70 to 80,000 assassins gathered behind them erupted into chaotic shouts, unleashing a torrential killing force. The sheer pressure turned the skies and earth ominously dim. The gods of the Chenjue Divine Kingdom, having never encountered such an overwhelming army of assassins, found many of their knees trembling. Through the cacophony of chaos, Yi Chen's voice rang clearly in everyone's ears. "Our purpose for coming here? Simple. Seize treasures and slaughter. By treasures, I'm referring to the ones held by Boss Yao beside me, and the ones all of you are carrying. As for slaughter, I intend to exterminate every assassin and villain here in the valley." Yi Chen's brazen and unfiltered words shocked the assassins, eliciting a simultaneous surge of rage. Arrogant, reckless, a mere lower god king dares claim he will slaughter us all? Utter nonsense. You're courting death. A handful of impetuous assassins, oblivious to Yi Chen's might, roared furiously and charged fiercely toward him. The god kings I've slain are countless in number. Today, I'll simply add a few more to the tally. These 30 or so assailants reached Yi Chen in an instant, but Yi Chen simply stretched out his hand, pointing lazily toward the void. Splurt, 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 splurt. Dozens of sword lights suddenly erupted from Yi Chen's fingertips, piercing straight through the attackers' bodies. They were utterly powerless to resist. In just one move, these 30 assailants were slaughtered on the spot. As the corpses of the assassins plummeted to the earth, disbelief filled the valley's ranks of 70 to 80,000 assassins and villains. They couldn't believe that this young man dared openly kill their companions before their very eyes. Terror, awe, fury, and bloodlust erupted in waves within the hearts of the assassins. Before they could act, Yi Chen turned and addressed Hua Shuilian and the divine kings of the Chenjue Divine Kingdom behind him. "We didn't come here to negotiate peacefully with these assassins and villains. I'll handle the purple and blue light assassins. For those of you who haven't completed your mission, go ahead and kill as many of them as you need to. For those who've completed it, wipe out the remaining assassins from the valley." As he spoke, a pale golden divine light surged from Yi Chen's body. The unmatched radiance burst forth, enveloping the area, completely suppressing all the purple and blue light assassins in the valley. "Attack!" At Yi Chen's command, Hua Shuilian's eyes gleamed sharply as she darted toward the restrained purple light assassins. Hua Shuilian had both seen and heard of god kings from the Chenjue Divine Kingdom falling at the hands of these assassins in the domain of sin. To adventurers, these assassins were mortal enemies, warranting no mercy. Kill, kill, kill. Complete your missions. Exterminate these assassins from the Valley of the Wicked. With Yi Chen and Hua Shuilian leading the charge, and the most powerful foes already constrained, the 35 god kings of the Chenjue Divine Kingdom were instantly ignited with fervor. Wielding their divine weapons, they charged into the fray, shouting as they plunged into battle against the assassins. Seeing their rivals attack, the assassins of the valley retaliated, drawing their divine weapons and counterattacking. In a moment, violent sounds of battle reverberated through the entire Valley of the Wicked. Amid the gruesome slaughter, a cold, detached voice, one belonging to the mission monitor of the first layer of the Heavenly God Mountain, echoed through the void heaven. "Xian Shan, mission for the first layer of the world completed. Wang Ming, mission for the first layer of the world completed." Xian Shan, Wang Ming, and others, all god kings of the Chenjue Divine Kingdom, had only needed to kill a few more assassins to fulfill the requirements for their missions. Now, with Yi Chen and Hua Shuilian suppressing the strongest foes, they'd easily completed their tasks by slaying their targets. As the cold voices announcing missions completed echoed one after another, the seventh voice resounded, Yi Chun. Mission for the first layer of the world completed. While restraining the purple and blue light assassins, Yi Chun had also slain 3 blue light assassins, finishing his own mission entirely. Half an hour later, 37 figures soared out of the Valley of the Wicked. And within the valley, nothing but endless corpses remained. Chapter 897- Breakthrough and Astonishment. In the void 100 miles away from the Valley of the Wicked. Ha! Exhilarating. Absolutely exhilarating. With Yi Chun and Hua senior brother, 2 top experts holding the line, those assassins and villains of the Valley of the Wicked stood no chance of posing a life-or-death threat to us. This bloody battle has finally annihilated them completely. At this moment, the 35 divine kings of the Chenjua Divine Kingdom were all covered in blood, and their divine power was heavily depleted. Some were even slightly injured, yet every face was brimming with unparalleled excitement. After all, the ones they had killed were 70 to 80,000 assassins and villains of the Valley of the Wicked. Even though the most powerful assassins were dealt with by Yi Chun and Hua Shuilian, managing to slay the remaining assassins was still an exhilarating achievement for everyone. They were mortal enemies of those assassins and villains from the domain of sin, so the more they killed, the better. Yi Chun and Hua Shuilian's eyes gleamed with sharp determination, their thoughts filled with mixed emotions. Though they had both spent some time in the secret ground small world, they had rarely heard the sound announcing challengers completing their missions. Compared to the 530,000 people who entered Heavenly God Mountain, only tens of thousands had completed their missions thus far. This indicated that a large portion likely met their deaths at the hands of the assassins and villains from the domain of sin. It wasn't hard to imagine that many of the deceased were divine kings from Wamu Mountain Divine Nation and Chenjua Divine Kingdom, among the 5 great divine kingdoms. Both of them naturally wished to kill more assassins, partly to avenge the fallen challengers and partly to prevent the surviving divine kings of the 5 great divine kingdoms from facing further life-threatening dangers. Amid their sentiments, Hua Shuilian said to Yi Chun, "Yi Chun, even Boss Yao had it rough. He was ultimately killed directly by those 3 purple light assassins. Luckily, we cleared out the Valley of the Wicked in the end and retrieved all their treasures. Otherwise, it would have been a pity to lose Boss Yao's treasures." During the recent battle, Boss Yao had been hiding on the sidelines, too scared to fight or flee. Initially, he hoped Yi Chun would spare him, but in the end, while Yi Chun was fighting the 3 purple light assassins, those assassins, who were on par with Boss Yao in terms of level, suddenly attacked him, resulting in his death. The reason those 3 were so determined to kill Boss Yao was their belief that he had brought Yi Chun and his group to the Valley of the Wicked, causing its downfall. Although Yi Chun could have blocked them, he chose not to intervene in the end. Boss Yao wasn't a good person anyway. To perish at the hands of other assassins and villains was his own fault. Unwilling to dwell on matters of the Valley of the Wicked, Yi Chun turned to Hua Shuilian and the divine kings of Chenjua Divine Kingdom and said, "Fellow cultivator Hua, everyone, do you have any plans now? I plan to enter secluded cultivation directly and wait until the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain opens before re-emerging." Yi Chun had obtained the Fate Divine Pill, and with over 20 days left in the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain, he planned to spend that time breaking through to the Middle God King realm. Hearing that Yi Chun was going to cultivate, Hua Shuilian and others, who initially wanted to keep exploring with him, all showed regretful expressions. Soon, they cupped their hands toward Yi Chun and said, "Since fellow Taoist Yi Chun is going to cultivate, we won't disturb you. Our missions are all completed, so it's time we enter secluded cultivation ourselves, to prepare for the unforeseen challenges of the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain." After some brief conversation, Yi Chun bid farewell to the Chenjua Divine Kingdom members and flew away. The 36 members of Chenjua Divine Kingdom, including Hua Shuilian, also parted ways, scattering in small groups toward different locations. Half a day later, in a secluded mountain range within the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain, Yi Chun's figure appeared from the distant void heaven, instantly landing in the skies above the mountain range. Scanning with his divine eye, Yi Chun quickly selected a spot within the mountains. With a mighty grab, boom, A pillar-like mountain segment was ripped out by Yi Chen's hand. Rumble. Tossing the massive pillar-like mountain segment to the ground, it created a massive cylindrical pit in the mountain range. Yi Chen then sealed the entire mountain from the outside and stepped into the massive pit. Soon after, with a sweep of his sword light, Yi Chen carved out a cultivation cave abode within the mountain in moments. Taking out a meditation cushion he had obtained from the abandoned land, Yi Chen seated himself atop it. With a flick of his sleeve, he brought forth a small bottle containing the Fate Divine Pill, which appeared on the ground. Simultaneously, he pointed with his finger, summoning a few drops of divine milk he had retrieved from the demon tomb to hover in the void. Gazing at the Fate Divine Pill and the divine milk, Yi Chen took a deep breath. It's time to break through to the Middle God King realm. Yi Chen harbored an insatiable desire for cultivation breakthroughs. In the 5 months he had spent in the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain, Yi Chen had faced numerous dangers, especially in the world of the Death Fruit, where he had nearly been trapped to death. Though he had escaped danger and slain many enemies, acquiring a plethora of treasures, his mind and spirit remained unyielding. After all, if his strength hadn't been sufficient, he wouldn't have shattered the world of the Death Fruit, and his death would have been certain. If he hadn't been far stronger than Boss Yao and the assassins of the Valley of the Wicked, he would have still been the one dead. Yi Chen had too many goals to achieve. He certainly didn't want to die. This time, his strength allowed him to escape peril. Naturally, Yi Chen wished to possess enough strength to evade danger in the future as well. Thus, increasing his power was of utmost importance. Yi Chen was already at the peak of the lower God King realm. Unlike others who obtained a Fate Divine Pill and needed time to refine it to reach the peak before breaking through, Yi Chen could directly attempt to break through to the Middle God King realm. In the mountain cave, after a few deep breaths and completing all his preparations, Yi Chen calmed his mind and officially entered the state of breakthrough. Time passed day by day. The mountain range where Yi Chen was cultivating remained undisturbed by his sealing technique. The mountains stayed utterly tranquil. Only occasionally would the cold voice of the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain resound, announcing the names of challengers who had completed their missions. As the time reached 5 months and 24 days since the 530,000 challengers entered the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain, leaving only 6 days until the half-year mission deadline, that day, the previously silent mountain range erupted with endless thunderous sounds. Before this, vast tribulation clouds had gathered above the mountains. As the mountain range roared, the tribulation clouds above began to collapse at great speed. This change startled nearby challengers and assassins from the domain of sin, forcing them to notice the anomaly in the remote mountain range. Could it be someone undergoing a divine tribulation, attempting a breakthrough? To think someone would choose such a remote mountain range to undergo tribulation. Whoosh! 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 Countless figures flew toward the mountain range, eager to explore the situation. Soon, they discovered a formidable prohibition emanating from the mountains, repelling any who attempted to enter far away. Even challengers from the second region of the Heavenly God list and elite blue light assassins couldn't breach the prohibition. This astonished everyone present. No one should rashly intrude into these mountains. Whoever is cultivating within must be extremely powerful, or else their prohibition wouldn't be able to stop so many of us. Judging by the clouds, this person is about to complete their breakthrough. Let's wait here and see who it is. Whoosh! 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 Unable to enter the mountains, the rest retreated to a distance, observing and closely monitoring any movements within. At this time, the number and strength of challengers and assassins in the area were evenly matched, and for the moment, both sides paused their conflict, forming 2 opposing factions, their gazes fixed on the mountains. After dozens of breaths, the entire mountain range exploded with endless gales and divine light. The gales and divine light howled through the mountains for 2 whole days, with only 4 days remaining before the opening of the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. The roaring gales and shining divine light, which had raged for so long, abruptly vanished as if swallowed by a massive serpent, retreating into the mountains in an instant. Then, with a deafening boom, The entire mountain range split in two along the retreating divine light. A figure shot out from the rift, hovering in the void. He floated there with eyes closed, but the aura emanating from him unmistakably belonged to a middle god king. A middle god king? Someone went from a lower god king to a middle god king? To trigger such commotion, and his prohibition was even impenetrable to us. On one side of the mountains, the gathered assassins and villains of the domain of sin were all filled with dread and disbelief. It's Yi Chun. That man is ranked fourth on the heavenly god list. Yi Chun. To think it was him cultivating here. On the other side of the mountains, the challengers from the 5 great divine kingdoms exclaimed in recognition. These challengers, who had entered Heavenly God Mountain alongside Yi Chun, naturally recognized this formidable individual. Amidst the shock of both parties, Yi Chun, who was seated in the sky, gradually opened his eyes. His face bore a faint smile. With the assistance of the Fate Divine Pill and the Divine Milk, his breakthrough had been incredibly smooth. He had finally advanced from a peak lower God King to the middle God King realm, officially becoming a middle God King. From now on, Yi Chun was truly a middle God King. With a subtle smile, Yi Chun also noticed the 2 groups outside the mountains staring at him in astonishment. To the challengers from the 5 divine kingdoms, Yi Chun smiled and nodded slightly. But toward the assassins and villains of the domain of sin, Yi Chun showed no mercy. I've just completed my breakthrough and need to stabilize my realm, so I've no wish for bloodshed. Domain of sin individuals, leave at once. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to ensure your corpses join those of the assassins of the Valley of the Wicked. Hearing Yi Chun's words, these killers and villains were struck with a profound sense of alarm. During this time, rumors of the complete annihilation of 70 to 80,000 assassins at the Valley of the Wicked had spread throughout the first-layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. Though none of the assassins knew the identity of the perpetrator behind such a massive slaughter. Now, upon hearing Yi Chun's words, this group of assassins and villains immediately realized the truth. It was Yi Chun who caused the massacre. Chapter 898 Heavenly God Mountain Level 2. After learning that it was Yi Chun who swept through the Valley of the Wicked, the assassins and villains of the domain of sin no longer dared to remain anywhere near the mountains. Within the blink of an eye, everyone frantically scattered in all directions. They only wished to get as far away from this harbinger of doom as possible before Yi Chun, having just broken through and still needing to stabilize his realm, developed any intent to kill. In an instant, no trace of an assassin or villain could be seen across the entire expanse of the world. With just a few words, countless powerful beings were driven away. The divine kings of the 5 great divine kingdoms near the mountains looked at Yi Chun with completely transformed gazes. I had heard about the matter of the Valley of the Wicked. 70 to 80,000 assassin villains perished in the Valley of the Wicked. Among them even over a dozen purple-tier assassin villains and several hundred blue-tier assassin villains. When I first heard of this, I clapped and cheered. I never imagined that it was Yi Chun who accomplished this. One of the divine kings from the 5 great divine kingdoms spoke up. I had heard of this long ago, and it was none other than a divine king from the Chenjua divine kingdom who disclosed it to me. That divine king of the Chenjua divine kingdom said that during that battle, Yi Chun single-handedly suppressed all the powerful opponents. Yi Chun was like an immortal divine venerable level figure. That divine king from the Chenjua divine kingdom also participated in the Valley of the Wicked battle and has the utmost admiration for Yi Chun. He even cautioned me not to speak of the matters of the Valley of the Wicked without Yi Chun's consent. That's why I abstained from mentioning it earlier. Now that Yi Chun has revealed it himself, I can share what I know. Another divine king spoke up as well. Upon hearing this divine king's words, others were visibly shaken, their gazes toward Yi Chun now filled with utter disbelief. One man suppressing over a dozen purple-tier assassin villains and hundreds of blue-tier assassin villains. Surely that level of combat power would require an immortal divine venerable. To think, after just a few months, Yi Chun's combat power has reached such heights. Doesn't this mean he is likely now the top figure on the heavenly god list? It's been over 20 days since the Valley of the Wicked battle. and Yi Chun has just undergone another major breakthrough. Now, how much stronger could he have become? Amid their astonishment, someone transmitted a message quietly. Let's depart as well. The opening of the second layer of Heavenly God Mountain is imminent, and only 4 days remain. Let Yi Chun solidify his breakthrough in peace without interruption. Indeed, we mustn't disturb him. A powerhouse like Yi Chun deserves our utmost respect. Let's go. We've completed our task, and it's time to make preparations to challenge the second layer of Heavenly God Mountain. Such transmissions gradually spread among the nearby divine kings of the 5 great divine kingdoms surrounding the mountain. Finally, these individuals clasped their fists in respect toward Yi Chun and left the surrounding mountain area one by one. At last, the entire mountain range and its surroundings were left to Yi Chun alone. Watching the crowd disperse, Yi Chun withdrew his gaze and shook his head with a smile. He did not leave the mountain's void but instead began meditating right there, reflecting on the differences of the recently attained Middle God King realm. He focused on the transformations brought by the Tai divine power and the improvements to various techniques due to his realm's ascension. 4 days passed in the blink of an eye. The half-year duration allocated for tasks in the first layer world had finally come to an end. The moment to venture into the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain had finally arrived. As this moment arrived, all challengers and assassin villains still in the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain looked up to see massive light portals appearing in the void. Simultaneously, a cold voice announced the results of the task once again. The second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain is now open. All challengers who have completed their tasks may enter any void light portal to travel to the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. Now, all challengers who have completed their tasks proceed to the second layer. The assassin villains of the domain of sin who have completed their corresponding tasks will be sent out of Heavenly God Mountain and granted divine light of pardon. As for those who have not completed their tasks, whether challengers or assassin villains of the domain of sin, all will be sealed within the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain. When this proclamation ended, countless people within the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain revealed expressions of despair. These were the challengers and assassin villains who had failed to complete their tasks. These individuals understood that being sealed within the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain marked their failure to ascend further, leaving them forever trapped. Among the waves of despair, there were also countless thrilled individuals. These were the ones who had successfully completed their tasks, both challengers and assassin villains. Those assassin villains were finally granted the pardon divine light they had longed for, enabling them to return to their respective divine kingdoms. Meanwhile, the challengers who had completed their tasks could now venture into the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. Swish, swish, swish. As soon as the cold voice ceased, tens of thousands of challengers took to the skies, heading toward the vast void light portals. Moments later, these figures had completely vanished into the void. In the secluded portion of the void above the mountains, Yi Chun finally rose to his feet. After 4 days, he had roughly stabilized his newly attained realm as a Middle God King to 80%. Although he had yet to completely familiarize himself with all the changes of his new realm, the 80% stabilization was sufficient for Yi Chun to wield even more powerful divine power as he entered the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. I wonder how the ancient emperor of the Yen clan and the others are faring in that fruit pocket world. If they encountered the same death fruit as I did, their chances would be slim. I hope their situation is not as perilous as the one I faced. I hope to see them again in the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. Murmuring softly to himself, Yi Chun joined the crowd of challengers who had completed their tasks and soared toward the void's light portals. Moments later, Yi Chun had completely vanished from the first layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. Countless beams of divine light glowed, carrying figures into a brand new world, Heavenly God Mountain's second layer world. Upon arriving in the second layer world, everyone's eyes widened in amazement. Even Yi Chun, who was transported into the new world by the divine light, appeared utterly stunned. Is this truly the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain? Looking around, The challengers who entered the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain numbered roughly 90,000. At this moment, all 90,000 challengers stood on the edge of a vast ocean. The entire second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain was made up of boundless ocean, except for this edge. But this was no ordinary ocean. Its waters seemed to be composed of lightning, glittering with mysterious arcs of silver light. Above the ocean floated purple mist, where clusters of purple-silver pearls rose and fell amidst the waves and fog. Chapter 899-. Sea of Mist, Purple-Silver Pearl. This second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. Why does it look like this? It's all seawater. Does this mean our trial in this second layer has to take place within the ocean? The over 90,000 challengers who entered the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain looked at the scene before them with indescribable astonishment. Of course, no one dared to act rashly and fly into the ocean to explore. After all, this is the Heavenly God Mountain. Rumor has it that the higher you climb, the more dangerous it becomes. Without knowing the trial rules of this mysterious second layer world, naturally, no one dared to venture blindly. The challengers' attention was initially drawn to the strange features of this second layer world. Only after dozens of breaths did they begin cautiously observing one another. Yi Chen's gaze also swept across the crowd. As he looked, he immediately locked eyes with numerous individuals among the over 90,000 figures. Among these gazes, many looked at him with joyful and familiar expressions, nodding in acknowledgement. These included god kings from the Wanmu Mountain Divine Kingdom, as well as those from the Chenjue Divine Kingdom whom he had saved in the past, and individuals like Hua Shuilian. Yi Chen noticed that at this moment, Hua Shuilian was still at the Upper God King realm. While it seemed Hua Shuilian possessed a Fate Divine Pill, breaking through from the God King realm to the Divine Venerate realm was no easy feat, and he had not completed the breakthrough yet. However, despite Hua Shuilian not achieving a breakthrough, the fact that he could enter the second layer of Heavenly God Mountain clearly indicated that he had completed his assigned task. After all, Hua Shuilian's task included slaying 3 infamous Golden Light assassin evildoers. That he succeeded showed his combat power had greatly advanced during this period. While Hua Shuilian had not advanced his realm, there were already 2 individuals present who had directly broken through from the God King realm to the Divine Venerate realm, becoming Earth Divine Venerates. These 2 were none other than the top 2 ranked figures on the Heavenly God list, Lin Shan and Sima Liao. At this moment, Sima Liao had already transformed into a lower Earth Divine Venerate. Meanwhile, Lin Shan was even more formidable, having made a breakthrough to the Middle Earth Divine Venerate realm. As mutual observations continued, not only did Yi Chen notice Lin Shan and Sima Liao's advancement, but gradually, the other God Kings also recognized the 2's breakthroughs. These 2 had already been outstandingly powerful. Now, with their advancements, no one could fathom just how terrifying their combat power had become. At this moment, the way Sima Liao and Lin Shan gazed at the rest of the group was distinctly different. There was a subtle air of superiority in their looks. It was no wonder their gazes bore such airs. While everyone had entered Heavenly God Mountain at the God King realm, now only these 2 had ascended to Earth Divine Venerate status, leaving the others still at the God King level. Naturally, this caused them to unconsciously perceive themselves as superior. Sima Liao's gaze at this time discreetly landed on Yi Chen. Upon noticing that Yi Chen's realm had also improved, Sima Liao's eyes narrowed slightly. So, Yi Chen's realm has also advanced. However, in the depths of Sima Liao's eyes, a glimmer of contempt flickered. Though his realm has advanced, it's merely from a lower God King to a middle God King. Compared to my breakthrough from God King to Divine Venerate, he's still far behind. Back then, I could suppress him on the Heavenly God list. Now, I can completely crush him. When the opportunity arises, I'll ensure that Yi Chen is eliminated entirely, completing the task given to me by the Divine Dragon Mountain Sect Master, Qin Yuntian. As Sima Liao's thoughts churned, Lin Shan's gaze, on the other hand, wasn't focused on the crowd. Instead, he was looking up into the void, as if something even more enticing awaited him higher up the Heavenly God Mountain. Though the two new Earth Divine Venerates present appeared out of reach, many god kings couldn't resist approaching them with flattering smiles. Congratulations, Taoist Sima. Congratulations, Taoist Lin Shan. I've long heard that Heavenly God Mountain offers unimaginable good fortune. God kings who survive can continuously break through their realms, even reaching the Upper Earth Divine Venerate realm, or perhaps even greater before leaving. To think that after only the first layer, the two of you have already progressed so far, especially Taoist Lin Shan, who has even reached the Middle Earth Divine Venerate realm. The God Kings offered their congratulations to Sima Liao and Lin Shan, their voices full of envy and reverence. Amid the lively crowd, however, Yi Chun no longer paid attention to Sima Liao and Lin Shan. True, these two were incredibly strong, but Yi Chun felt no particular fear toward them. Before he advanced to the Middle God King realm, he had already slain a lower immortal divine venerate. Now that he had achieved the Middle God King realm, his mastery of Tai divine power and Blue Extreme Ice Flame had greatly improved, and his combat power had naturally taken another leap forward. Although his realm hadn't yet matched theirs, in a true battle, the outcome was far from certain. After glancing away from Sima Liao and Lin Shan, Yi Chen's eyes were drawn to a figure on the edge of the crowd, the ancient emperor of the Yen clan. Upon seeing the ancient emperor, Yi Chen's eyes were filled with stunned surprise. Senior Ancient Emperor. With a flash of his figure, Yi Chun appeared before the ancient emperor of the Yen clan. Previously, Yi Chun had assumed that, like him, the ancient emperor had entered the world of the death fruit and met with almost certain doom. Yet now, seeing the ancient emperor alive in the second layer of Heavenly God Mountain was an unexpected surprise. Senior Ancient Emperor, didn't you enter the death fruit? And what about Taoist Mo Li and Taoist Feng Han? I didn't see them in the second layer world. Could it be that they've already fallen? Since being absorbed into one of 4 fruit worlds, the group of 4 had been separated. Yi Chun had numerous questions for the ancient emperor of the Yen clan. The ancient emperor paused at Yi Chen's words. Death fruit? What death fruit? I entered the fate fruit, which was filled with treasures and hardly dangerous. Yi Chen, did you not enter the fate fruit? The ancient emperor of the Yen clan had always assumed that Yi Chen, Mo Li, and Feng Han had entered the fate fruit alongside him. Initially, after finding Yi Chun, he had found it strange that he hadn't seen Mo Li or Feng Han. Hearing Yi Chen's words now, the ancient emperor suddenly sensed something wasn't right. Perhaps, from the very beginning, the group of 4 had been sent to entirely different fruit worlds. Senior Ancient Emperor, I didn't enter the fate fruit. I was drawn into the death fruit. It was incredibly perilous, and I barely escaped with my life. Yi Chun recounted his experiences in the death fruit to the ancient emperor. The ancient emperor, in turn, shared what he had encountered inside the fate fruit. Through their exchange, the two finally understood. The 4 of them had indeed been sent to separate fruit worlds. If Mo Li and Feng Han had failed to reach the second layer of Heavenly God Mountain, it was likely because they had perished within their respective fruit worlds. Among the 4 who had entered together, 2 had fallen. This realization filled Yi Chun with a heartfelt sigh of sorrow. Yi Chun had already noticed that only 90,000 challengers had successfully made it to the second layer of Heavenly God Mountain. In the beginning, a total of 530,000 God Kings from the 5 divine kingdoms had entered the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain. This meant over 400,000 had either perished or were trapped within the first layer. Charging through Heavenly God Mountain truly is a trial of both opportunity and danger. While many fail, those who succeed reap immense rewards. Amidst his reflections, Yi Chun looked at the over 90,000 survivors who had successfully made it to the second layer. Many among them had seen advancements in their realms or a significant surge in their auras. Clearly, surviving the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain had granted them considerable gains. Successfully reaching the second layer doesn't mean the end of the journey. Ahead lie the third and fourth layers, and only those still alive at the very end can be considered true victors. Out of these 90,000 survivors, how many will make it in the end? Both Yi Chun and the ancient emperor of the Yen clan sighed as they thought about Mo Li and Feng Han's fate. Knowing there were still 3 more layers of the heavenly god mountain to face, they grew even more cautious. Yi Chun, congratulations on breaking through to the middle god king realm. While Yi Chun was conversing with the ancient emperor, Mu Qingxue floated over to him with a cheerful smile. Unlike most of the crowd, who swarmed around Lin Shan and Sima Liao, Mu Qingxue chose to approach Yi Chun instead to offer her congratulations. Yi Chun looked at the petite girl before him, whose stature only reached his shoulder. Seeing that her realm had also advanced, she had gone from a middle god king to an upper god king realm, Yi Chun smiled at her. Taoist Qingxue, I should also congratulate you on your breakthrough. He. Mutual congratulations it is. Mu Qingxue's eyes gleamed with laughter as she playfully blinked. Yi Chun, with 3 more layers of trials ahead, you'll need to be careful. Sister Long Li is surely waiting to hear of your success once you emerge from the heavenly god mountain. Mu Qingxue, a close friend of Long Li, couldn't help but mention her. Upon hearing Long Li's name, Yi Chen's expression tensed, and he clenched his fists. That's right. He had to make it through Heavenly God Mountain. For Long Li and for Zhang Yao. The last time he went to the 10,000 Beasts domain, he didn't encounter Long Li or Zhang Yao. Yi Chun was still waiting for the day he could leave Heavenly God Mountain and return to the 10,000 Beasts domain to see if they had emerged from the Zishuan Treasure Palace. The over 90,000 challengers who reached the second layer engaged in scattered conversations. Unnoticed by many, an incense stick's time had quietly passed. Suddenly, a cold voice rang out across the second layer world of Heavenly God Mountain. The voice was the same one that had announced the trial rules for the first layer of the Heavenly God Mountain. The moment the voice sounded, all conversations ceased, and everyone pricked up their ears to listen. Every challenger knew that the rules for the second layer trial were about to be revealed. Indeed, only the cold voice could be heard. Congratulations to all challengers who have successfully completed the tasks of the first layer of Heavenly God Mountain and made it to the second layer. The second layer of Heavenly God Mountain, this vast ocean, shall be known as Sea of Mist. The silver-purple beads drifting within the misty seawater are called purple-silver beads. Your ability to pass through the second layer of Heavenly God Mountain depends entirely on this Sea of Mist and these purple-silver beads. Chapter 900 The Secret of the Purple-Silver Pearl. Sea of Mist? Purple-Silver Pearl? Does charging into the second layer of the Heavenly God Mountain world have something to do with these two things? Upon hearing the words of the cold voice, over 90,000 challengers all simultaneously turned their gazes toward the boundless ocean before them, looking at the purple mist above the seawater and the purple-silver pearls darting amidst arcs of silver lightning in the sea. At this moment, the cold voice continued, Now, I will activate the challenge rules. Sea of Mist will be divided into 3 distinct zones. They are the outermost green light safe zone, the second part yellow light danger zone, and the innermost red light death zone. Rumble. As the cold voice spoke, all the challengers noticed that the boundless ocean ahead of them was transformed. The ocean originally consisted of seawater emanating mysterious arcs of silver lightning and layers of purple mist floating above. However, now the entire ocean radiated 3 different colors of divine light, dividing it into 3 strikingly distinct zones. The nearest zone to the challengers was surrounded by green divine light, spanning about several hundred miles wide, encircling the outermost layer of the sea. The middle zone was the yellow light zone, roughly several thousand miles wide, forming a vast ring. Further inward was the largest zone, the red light zone. Apart from the outer green light and yellow light zones, which occupied less than 1% of the ocean's area, the rest was entirely red light zone. As the challengers examined these 3 zones, the cold voice explained, Each of these zones carries its own dangers. Relatively speaking, the outermost zone is the safest. The green light safe zone offers the least danger, the yellow light danger zone has more, and the red light death zone. You must absolutely not enter it, as doing so will guarantee certain death. Your task is to venture into the Sea of Mist to collect purple-silver pearls. In these 3 zones, the green light safe zone contains the fewest number of purple-silver pearls, making collection opportunities slim. Although the yellow light danger zone is perilous, the probability of encountering purple-silver pearls is greater, increasing your chances of collection. As for the innermost red light death zone, it is the area where purple-silver pearls are most concentrated, and theoretically the best place for collection. But regretfully, you are forbidden from entering it. The duration for the second layer of the Heavenly God Mountain Challenge is 3 months. After 3 months, only those who submit 1,000 purple-silver pearls will be allowed to progress to the third layer of the Heavenly God Mountain world. Whether to stay in the safer green light zone with fewer purple-silver pearls, or venture deeper into the more dangerous yellow light zone with higher chances of collection, is for you to decide. However, I must remind you, you are prohibited from gifting purple-silver pearls to others. Should this happen, both parties will immediately face death as decreed by the Heavenly God Mountain's rules. Every purple-silver pearl you collect belongs to you alone. In addition, no killing is allowed in the green light safe zone. You may not kill others to take their purple-silver pearls. Of course, in the yellow light danger zone, such restrictions are lifted. If you have the ability to kill someone and take their purple-silver pearls, that would purely depend on your skill. That said, if you wish to take purple-silver pearls, you must kill your opponent. Simply taking them without killing will be deemed gifting, which will also lead to immediate death by the Heavenly God Mountain's rules. This extensive list of rules from the cold voice caused all the challengers to instinctively adopt grave expressions. Charging into the second layer of the Heavenly God Mountain world turned out to be solely about collecting purple-silver pearls. Moreover, you must gather at least 1,000 purple-silver pearls to qualify for entry into the third layer of the Heavenly God Mountain world. 90,000 challengers couldn't help but notice that most of the purple-silver pearls floating within the ocean appeared in the forbidden red light death zone. Those that emerged in the green light safe zone and yellow light danger zone were extremely sparse. Their appearances seemed entirely without pattern. Under such circumstances, collecting purple-silver pearls was clearly no simple task, and with the prohibition against mutual gifting, it became clear that everyone would have to rely solely on their own skills to obtain the purple-silver pearls. Furthermore, because the yellow light danger zone allowed killing, the risk of death there was undoubtedly heightened. The yellow light danger zone was already more treacherous, but the allowance of deadly combat made it even more daunting. Those lacking confidence in their strength likely wouldn't dare set foot in the yellow light zone. However, remaining within the green light safe zone might mean it would be almost impossible to complete the task. Whether one could manage to collect enough purple-silver pearls would largely depend on luck. As the challengers contemplated their choice of zone for collecting purple-silver pearls, the cold voice delivered a final declaration. There is one more thing I need to tell you. These purple-silver pearls are not only your test but also a bestowed opportunity. Because purple-silver pearls are a universal currency within this universe. Holding purple-silver pearls grants you the ability to purchase items in any divine kingdom in the universe, or exchange them for any other divine kingdom's exclusive currency. Thus, the more purple-silver pearls you collect, beyond the 1,000 needed to enter the third layer of Heavenly God Mountain, the greater wealth you will attain. Take, for example, the Wanmu Mountain Divine Kingdom. A single purple-silver pearl can be exchanged for a full 1 billion black divine coins, the currency of Wanmu Mountain. If you manage to gather several dozen, you could become fabulously rich. Boom! These words from the cold voice caused an instant uproar among the 90,000 challengers. The purple-silver pearls were not merely the key to progressing to the third layer of Heavenly God Mountain, but were also a universal currency of this cosmos. Each purple-silver pearl held extraordinary value. One single pearl equated to 1 billion Wanmu Mountain black divine coins, essentially the fortune of many Earth divine venerables. If one could collect hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of pearls, wouldn't they achieve the wealth of heavenly divine venerables, immortal divine venerables, or even sovereigns? I remember now. The purple-silver pearls are indeed a type of top-tier currency for this universe. Within the crowd, a divine king from the Snow Desert Divine Kingdom exclaimed, I remember meeting a senior who possessed purple silver pearls. He mentioned that while traveling between divine kingdoms, carrying one's own currency was useless, but purple silver pearls could be used universally. Moreover, he said that purple silver pearls are items owned only by immensely powerful immortal divine venerables or sovereigns, and are exceedingly rare for anyone else. I can't believe we now have a chance to access such divine objects. The heavenly God Mountain is remarkable to host a universal currency of the cosmos here. I suspect other divine kingdoms that contain areas capable of presenting such currency are equally shrouded in mystery. A divine king chimed in, I've also heard that purple silver pearls are not merely currency, but are also miraculous treasures for cultivation. They contain a unique divine soul power that, once absorbed, can greatly enhance the vitality of one's divine soul signs. Many formidable warriors use purple silver pearls for cultivation when they acquire them. It's one reason, despite occasional discoveries, they often exist in limited circulation. Amidst the fervent discussions, Yi Chen's eyes gleamed as he focused on the dancing purple silver pearls in the sea of mist. I didn't expect these purple silver pearls to have such profound uses. Yi Chen had once ventured beyond the Wanmu Mountain Divine Kingdom to the 10,000 Beasts Domain Divine Kingdom. During that time, he relied on the star seal rather than using currency for transportation. Yi Chen had yet to encounter the universal currency shared by countless divine kingdoms within the cosmos. Now, he was thrilled to have the opportunity to interact with such valuable objects in the heavenly God Mountain. Beyond Yi Chen, every other challenger was immensely captivated by the purple silver pearls. This was not merely a compulsory mission to enter the third layer of the heavenly God Mountain. It was a hidden treasure trove they absolutely had to pursue. Everyone was waiting for the cold voice to announce the beginning of the task. Finally, after elaborating further on the sea of mist and purple silver pearls, the cold voice officially declared the start of the 3-month challenge period for the second layer of Heavenly God Mountain. As the cold voice finished speaking, swoosh, 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 in an instant, all 90,000 challengers flew straight into the sea of mist. What a stifling sensation! This ocean feels so peculiar. My divine power and divine sense probing abilities are severely hindered, and even my flight speed has slowed dramatically. The initial zone the challengers entered was naturally the nearby green light safe zone. But even in the safest zone, the moment they entered, everyone sensed anomalies. The participants charging into the second layer of Heavenly God Mountain were no ordinary figures. Many were divine kings or divine venerables, capable of traversing tens of thousands of miles in an instant outside the Sea of Mist. Yet upon stepping into the Sea of Mist, everyone felt constrained, their flight speeds reduced to a fraction, only managing about 100 feet per few breaths. Those hoping to utilize their divine sense to locate the purple silver pearls also realized their probing range had been diminished to only a few hundred feet, severely limiting their scope. Even the most formidable among them, Lin Shan, Sima Liao, and Yi Chen, noticed the peculiar restrictions. While their speeds and probing ranges were comparatively superior to others, they too were heavily hindered by the Sea of Mist's mysterious forces. Don't cluster together. If we stay packed tightly, there's no way we'll collect enough purple silver pearls. Spread out. This ocean is vast. Everyone should find their own patch for collecting purple silver pearls. Whether you come across them is entirely up to fate. Noticing the abnormalities, the challengers quickly understood that remaining in groups wasn't an option. They had to operate individually. In no time, everyone scattered in all directions, flying toward vacant regions ahead. Among the group, Lin Shan and Sima Liao immediately traversed through the green light safe zone and headed straight for the yellow light danger zone. Neither of them had any intention of staying in the green light safe zone to gather purple silver pearls. They didn't fear others killing them for their pearls. In fact, others would be lucky if they avoided being killed by them.